Wow, happy Monday afternoon. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Spencer Dupuis to my left today. Across the glass, our summer intern Trenton Kraxner. And back for the first time in over 2 weeks, the one and only Dan Lucero in studio, back.
Hi, guys.
New father.
Hi, guys. How's everyone doing? We
doing great. How are you doing?
We still have a show.
I am tired and my back hurts. That's how I am doing. But things are good. Things are great. Glad to be back here. Glad you guys didn't get us canceled while I was away.
Spencer did everything he could.
That Thursday and Friday where it was just Spencer and Trent. And just kind of hoping to keep it in between the lines. But glad to be back. Great to be here. Do my first shows as a new father. We'll try not to make that my whole entire personality, but we'll go from here. Excited to be back. Excited. I assume that everything is just as I left it. The Royals are still awesome.
See, I was gonna say it was not very nice of you while you were gone to also make the Royals suck. That was not very polite for us.
Listen,
in particular,
I had nothing to do with that. That's a them problem. It is a little unfortunate. I honest to God, I hadn't even looked at the standings. I've watched some games. I'm keenly aware that West Coast road trip was a disaster, to which I say as a longtime Colorado Rockies fan, first time. But I did not realize how dire things had gotten, at least for the time being, in the American League standings before I looked this morning. And it was like, cool, collar got a little tight. I'm sure the collars are a little tight in the Royals clubhouse as they return home to start a 10-game homestand tonight.
We've got plenty of Royals to get to on 580 Sports Talk today. Getting swept. The Rangers aren't awful. It's not like getting swept by the A's, but you lost a series to the A's and then got swept for the first time all year by the Rangers. Now 3-11 in their last 14 games. We will get to that coming up here in just a few moments. Got plenty of NFL to get to today. ESPN's Seth Walder came out with his offseason grades for every team. High marks for the Chiefs, and I agree. We'll get to some of the other contenders from the AFC and what he thought about them as well. We've got a list from Pro Football Focus of the top receiving cores. I think that list stinks, and I'll tell you guys why in the 4 o'clock hour. And, of course, Matt Verderame will join us bottom of 3 o'clock today for our weekly talk about all things NFL on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. We'll look ahead to the start of the Royals series against the Marlins beginning today. They are facing a pitcher I have never heard of. I do not know who Verderame Munoz is. I do not know. That is a brand new person to me.
Could be made up. Could be.
It's a Marlin. It could be.
Could be a fiction. They're really bad.
Yeah, they
Miami,
stink.
27-50.
They are horrendous. So we'll preview that series and game one of that series coming up later on. An interesting quote from a sitting Power 4 athletic director I also want to get to. A topic that has for now just sort of been bandied about by people like sports talk radio hosts about a possible downside of realignment. Trenton's camera just fell down. We got to get that fixed. But a sitting Power 4 athletic director actually brought it up as a legitimate fear this weekend. And we'll talk about that coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today. What is wrong with you? Good, bad, and ugly from the weekend. All that coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. You know the drill. If you want to get involved, either hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line. That number, as always, 785-272-9429. You can also, of course, find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. We're just shy of 600 subscribers over on the YouTube. We've got some fun things planned once we get to that mark, but we've got to get there first. So get us to 600 subscribers if you haven't subscribed already. Again, 580 Sports Talk is the name of our channel on YouTube. Everybody subscribed while you were gone.
Yeah, now it's me.
Not to rub it in,
but now it's double birds at me. All these subscribers. Now the joke's on yours truly. I don't know if I like that very much, to be honest. But no, thank you to all of the new subscribers. Hopefully, I don't scare you off.
Speaking of double birds, when you're not here in the business we work in, people already don't take enough time off. But when you do take time off, you feel like you miss everything. You missed Chris Jones throwing 2 middle fingers up at the camera while doing his mini camp press conference.
Which he used about 3 or 4 expletives during it.
Yes. F anyone who gave an F- to my owner and then threw up 2 middle fingers at the camera. It was very funny.
I did miss that. I missed that entirely.
What is the thing you most regret not being able to participate in while you were gone? I mean, regret is used loosely.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I almost handed the baby to my wife and said, honey, we have a sports talk radio emergency. They're going to rename the Big 12 the Big All-State Conference, and I need to be behind a microphone to talk about this. I need it. I need it like I need air. I was like a balloon pinched at the end, and I just had so many jokes and nowhere for them to go.
It's crazy how much Brennan knows you, because he literally said that. He said, like,
Yeah.
Dan would probably just walk in this door any moment and start talking about this.
I was like, Dan could do an entire segment just himself talking about this, maybe an hour.
The Big All-State Conference. College sports are in great shape, guys. They're doing super. Everything is great. Things have never been more fine in college athletics.
Don't take our word for it. No, we'll get to some of the other headlines from these last couple of weeks that Dan missed while he was not here, coming up later on this hour. But we start today. This just in, the Royals might be bad now. And I'm being facetious. It is not a complete disaster for this team, but I think it's fair to say this weekend was something of a disaster. Which of these stats is worse in and of itself? The Royals scored 2 runs in a 3-game series. They came in the same game, in fact.
Yeah.
Or the fact that in 27 innings, the Royals went 1-2-3 18 times. That's 2 full games of going down in order. They were essentially no hit twice
that's
in 3 games.
That's 2 hidden perfect games.
Yeah.
I think they went, 24 innings or 22 innings where they didn't score a run?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's as bleak as it can get. I was listening to the majority of the game yesterday. I was listening to the broadcast here on the station, and Jake Eisenberg is awesome. He does such a good job with the Royals broadcast on radio, and he's a very positive guy. That was the least positive I have heard him all season. And with 1 out in the 9th inning, I heard him share the stat that the Royals had at that point gone down in order 17 of 26 innings. And I thought, oh my God.
Jeez.
And I did the math in my head while the final 2 outs were being recorded and thought, oh no, that's 2 whole games by the time this 9th inning is over.
Now,
they have not gotten a base runner.
Now, they did face 3 pretty good starting pitchers. Let's start there. He had to deal with Nate Eovaldi and John Gray and Max Scherzer in his first start off the injured list, looking like he hasn't missed a beat. That's a tough draw. Like,
Sure.
You're not in for a super fun weekend offensively if those are the starting pitchers that you draw. But I watched all of Saturday's game, and it's one thing to just tell you that they didn't score any runs on the weekend, or they went down in order 18 times in 27 innings. If you watched the at-bats, I don't think I've seen a more defeated-looking lineup that the Royals ran out there than they did on Saturday in particular. They weren't giving themselves a chance. The stuff they were swinging at, the kind of contact they were making, and that's the other part too. It's not as though the Rangers just overpowered and struck out like 48 guys in 27 innings. It's not. There were a lot of balls in play, just nothing hit with any kind of authority.
No.
Just weak at bat, give away at bat after give away at bat, and they look like a team that's been worn down a little bit. Taking the broad view of the last 6 games, where you came out of that stretch where you played 4 consecutive first place teams, and you go 5-7 in that stretch, which it's not good, but it's also not terrible. Like, that's not going to sink your season. You go 5-7 against that collection of teams,
right?
Back to back to back to back. I'm not surprised there was a bit of an emotional come down for this team after you've got to be so keyed up to play the Yankees and the Dodgers in the course of a week. You've got to peak and be your very best to give yourself a chance to win any of those games. Never mind the 2 that they got over the course of that 7-day stretch. I'm not surprised there was something of an emotional letdown. I'm just surprised at how severe it was. That looked like a tired ball club this weekend. Physically, emotionally, mentally, they look a little spent. And the good news is you come back home and you can undo a lot of what went wrong this past 9 games. If you go out and you have a 7-3 or an 8-2 homestand, you can take the edge off of that road trip in a hurry and get right back to where you want to be. But that looked like a team that was more exhausted than usual coming off of being in the 3rd city on a 3-game road trip, because those are taxing for everybody.
Sure. Long trip, the West Coast swing, regardless of how good those West Coast teams are always difficult. They're difficult in every sport, honestly. But By the same token, I want to go back to what you said about the pitchers they faced. Not a favorable matchup when you are exhausted, when you are on the third city of a 3-city road trip, when you've got to go up against future Hall of Famer, maybe the best pitcher on a staff this year in John Gray. Nathan Eovaldi has just been very good for a long time at this point. Not favorable. You still run into a hit now and again. Like, every once in a while, you have, like, the hand gets a little moist and they throw 4 balls. Like, a pitch slips out and you get hit in the butt. Like, something happens. Your jersey gets clipped. They went 2 full games without a base runner in the middle of a 3-game series.
And Max Scherzer is known for giving up like random home runs.
Yeah, that's kind of it. His 20 strikeout game, he gave up, I think, 3 runs.
Yeah, like that's what he did when he was with the Nationals. He would have great games. It'd just be a solo shot here in the 3rd, solo shot in the 5th, and then it'd be a solo shot in the 7th. Oh, time to pull you.
And the thing about pitching on the Royals side, I don't think the starters were bad by any means.
Like good.
Brady Singer, it's a tightrope act every single time he's out there now. Like, you feel like you are just in a constant state of you're doing a high wire act between skyscrapers and think, well, I'm about to fall to my death. Oh, wow, we got through 5 innings and only gave up 1 run. Wow, that's incredible. It just feels like you're on the precipice of danger constantly, but he was fine. He gave up 1 run in 5 innings. Michael Wacha, 1 run allowed in 5 innings. That should keep you in a game. They didn't have a chance. Alec Marsh yesterday gave up 3 runs in 5 2/3, which as a 5th starter, great. You should be in the game. He was 1 out shy of a quality start technically yesterday. That should be enough to get you in a game. But with the Royals not hitting, you don't have a chance. And like we talked about last week, Spencer, it got to a point, or it has gotten to a point, where if Bobby Witt's not producing, nobody is producing. And that came to a head this weekend when he had an 0-for-12 stretch to end the series.
Well, that's what this team has been all year, right? They've leaned on the aircraft carriers in the offense, and Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez, and at times Maikel Garcia and Vinny Pasquantino have produced at a high level. Well, now Maikel Garcia is not hitting leadoff anymore. They dropped him way down the order because he can't buy a hit. And I can't remember the last time Salvador Perez drove in a run. It feels like it's been eons since Salvi's come up with a hit, a big hit to drive somebody in. Vinny Pasquantino's in a funk again. He has run more hot and cold than I expected him to, given the kind of hitter that he is, where he draws his share of walks and he doesn't strike out a lot and he makes loud contact. I thought his highs would be higher and longer than his lows. He's been about a league average hitter this year, which is like not terrible, but they need more than that from their 3-hole hitter, especially when other guys go into a funk. And then, of course, nobody else other than Freddie Fermin with the 2 home runs against Oakland in the getaway day game there has really risen to the occasion on offense. Like Nick Lofton's taken a couple of good at-bats, but he's still hitting 229 and no pop. So this is a lineup that is really star dependent right now. And when those stars go through a weekend where they don't do anything, then nobody else is going to do anything either.
I'm a little confused about some of the, not all of it, but some of the usage of Salvi recently. And I know you want him out there. He's good for the young pitchers. He's a valuable piece, although they're not all that young on this roster anymore. But like the 2 days last week where he started at catcher and Freddie Fermin was DHing. What is the point of that? Let Salvi get at least a little rest for the knees.
Yeah.
Give him a legitimate day off, not he's banged up, he needs a day. Give him an actual day off. He, in the month of June, this is just June 1st through yesterday, he's 10 for 66. He's batting 152, a slug of 212. That's a slug below his on base, below Salvador Perez's on base percentage. Now, he actually has walked decently. He has 8 walks in the month, which is a ton for him. And he's gotten a little unlucky. Batting average on balls in play is sub 200 this month. You asked the question, Dan. I don't remember the last time he had an RBI. For the month, he has racked up 1 home run and 4 RBIs from the guy who hits third or cleanup usually every single day. And I'm not going to disparage the player Salvador Perez is, but it goes without saying you need more from him, or you're just not going to win very often.
Well, and to your point, at the start of June, his batting average was something like 320.
315 on June 1st.
Yeah, 315, 320. It's dropped to 280.
Which at this time of year is a precipitous drop.
Yeah.
you need your stars to be stars. This is a lineup that has been driven by star performances. When it's been going good, it hasn't just been Bobby Witt and Salvador Perez. That was when Maikel Garcia was going great guns. That was when Vinny Pasquantino was hitting doubles and driving in runs every game. That was when Michael Massey was healthy and in the lineup. I think his loss has been a precipitating factor in some of this lineup struggles because it shortens the lineup. You don't have, and it kind of goes back to what some of the struggles were in April and May, where you didn't have anything behind your top four guys, Garcia, Witt, Pasquantino, and Perez in that order. Typically, you didn't have anybody behind them. Well, when Michael Massey became that guy behind them, it lengthened the lineup a little bit. And since he's been out, this is a really short lineup. It's 4 guys deep. And then you're just kind of crossing your fingers and, hey, maybe Nelson Velasquez is going to run into one. Seems like it's been a while since that happened. Freddie Fermin, they've got to play him because he's their third best healthy hitter right now. Like, they have to play him.
Yeah.
And it's not, we're talking about Freddie Fermin here.
Right.
Who's a fine player, but if that's your third best hitter, that's for an extended stretch, that's a big problem.
At least he's shown some power.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to go back to your point about the starting pitchers.
Yeah.
And this is something that I had mentioned and probably had over mentioned, but I've been gone 2+ weeks. I think I can go back to this well. I think anything I say now is fresh because we put it on ice there for a couple of weeks. The Royals have to get their starters through 6 innings. It's not negotiable. Agreed. You have to get 6 from your starting pitcher because you're taxing a bullpen that doesn't have any depth. And right now it's even less deep than it was. At this point, I'm not sure who you really trust in the late innings. We had talked about it before I went on my paternity leave. Like, who's in the trust tree in the bullpen? Is anybody in the trust tree in the bullpen right now? Like, I know Will Smith is in a good run of form. Nick Anderson's pitched a little better lately, but like James McArthur's your ostensible closer, and he's lost the strike zone. John Schreiber is unplayable right now. You can't put him in anywhere near a close game.
And he had been your best.
Trust tree. He was like the top of that trust tree.
Johnny Leverage. He was the first guy out of the bullpen in a lot of those close games. Right now, he's got to be the last option.
He, in his last 4 outings, has gone 1/3, 2/3, 2/3, 1/3. Those are his lengths in the game for his last 4 outings and has given up 6 runs.
So you have got to get more than 5 innings. I understand extenuating circumstances with Waka because he was coming off the injured list.
Right.
I think in a different scenario, Waka probably at least starts the 6th. Marsh worked into the 6th. Brady Singer's been 5 and fly the last handful of time out. You can't have that from your third starter. You've got to find a way to be more efficient, to get through 6 and lighten the load on a struggling bullpen. Because asking these guys to get 12 outs in a close game, that's a really, really difficult ask right now. So I want to make that point. The other thing, too, I thought this was a really good point from Tyler in the YouTube comments. Tyler points out in the YouTube live chat, snowballed out of control this weekend. I think he's referring to the weekend, the series against Texas. When we stepped on home plate thinking it was a force out. Got to be game aware.
Yep.
What Tyler's referring to is the 8th inning on Saturday. It is a 1-0 ball game in the bottom of the 8th and still there to be won. Theoretically, the Royals were going to have the top of their order coming up. Hampson in the top of the order in the 9th. So you never know. There's 1 out. There's runners at 2nd and 3rd. Adolis Garcia's at the plate. Hits the little tapper back to Zerpa. Zerpa goes home with it. And now I'm not sure they would have gotten Marcus Semien out on the tag play anyway. I don't think it was hit hard enough. It was just one of those tweener balls. I don't necessarily think it was a bad play or the wrong play or whatever it was. But Freddie Fermin absolutely played that like he thought it was a force out. He played that like he thought the bases were loaded and not runners on 2nd and 3rd. And that goes back to the thing I was saying earlier. That's the sign of a mentally fatigued baseball team. That's a sign of a team that I think is a little bit mentally spent based on how much they put into that 12-game stretch with 4 straight first-place teams. That is as tough a 12-game stretch as any team in baseball is going to deal with this year. And the Royals dealt with it fine. Like 5 and 7, that's fine. You split with Cleveland, 2 out of 3 from Seattle, lost 3 out of 4 to the Yankees, who are the best team in the American League, lost 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers, best team in the National League. Like, that shows you pretty firmly where you are in the pecking order, but not a disaster. But you go from having to be so keyed up for every one of those games in that stretch to, well, it's Oakland. And, well, Texas is under 500. And I think there was a bit of an emotional and mental letdown this past week of games. And I think that manifested itself in a lot of ways. And as Tyler pointed out, even manifested itself in a decision made on the field, a very uncharacteristic decision.
And this goes back to Friday, and I changed my mind when I was being a pessimist. And I was talking about the Royals being cooked right now and done, and people in the comments were attacking me. Like, and Trenton said earlier today, he goes, the people in the comments owe you an apology. You were right.
I mean, feels that way after the last couple of days. You've got a chance now, start of this week. Bad team coming in. You're back at home, finally, where the Royals have been very good this year. They've been really good at the K. And the Marlins are awful. They are just the dregs. But we thought last week the Royals were going to have a bit of a reprieve, right? Because they played the Dodgers. That's a tough series. Obviously, you lose that series in LA. It is what it is. Then they got a day off on Monday, and then 3 against a bad and getting worse A's team. And then they lost the series and really did not look all that impressive in taking just 1 out of 3. You've got another chance here. You don't have the day off this time. You hope that returning home is going to aid in that regard, but it's going to be at least, another week before the Royals are off again, if I'm not mistaken?
I think next Monday.
Yeah, because they've got the 10-game homestand, then they head to Colorado for 3, and then they've got the funky week next week where they've got the 2 off days. You've got that 2-gamer with St. Louis in the middle, and then 3 with Boston before the All-Star break. But, yeah, this is one of those Bull Durham, Crash Davis, I'll get you a rain out kind of situations. If Crash Davis could go get the Royals a rain out today, I bet they'd appreciate it. They feel like a team that can use a rain out.
No, there's no doubt about that. Unfortunately, I don't think that's in the cards.
Until Thursday or Friday.
I've been looking at the forecast, and it's hot. Not seeing a lot of rain.
No. Unfortunately, the hourly forecast, a lot of numbers beginning with 1, 10 something. Not a whole lot in the precipitation category, though. We'll talk some more Royals baseball later on in the show, including the latest update on what the playoff picture looks like in Major League Baseball, and we'll get you ready for the series with the Marlins. Coming up next, though, big weekend for football recruiting for both KU and K-State, including one of the top prospects in the state on campus in Manhattan. We'll break it down next here on this Monday edition of 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Back at the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, this is 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, Dan, Spencer, and Trenton here with you today. We were just talking a moment ago. Trenton and I were looking at the wins above replacement leaders in the American League. One, I was wrong about Bobby Witt starting over Gunnar Henderson. Gunnar Henderson now leads all of baseball, I believe, in wins above replacement at over 5.5.
Yeah, he's having an unbelievable year.
Yeah, he's been tremendous. Additionally, Bobby Witt leads the Royals still. He's 6th in the American League. Great. 8th in the American League, Seth Lugo. No one predicted that.
No.
Literally no one. And the Royals are lucky they've got a club option. Well, I think it's a club option on his contract, right? Or is it a player option?
I can double check.
If it's a player option, he might be one and done in Kansas City because he might get paid.
I don't think it's a player option. I think it's could be a two-way. I'm trying to pull it up, but sometimes Baseball Reference wants to act up, be silly.
It does. We have a comment here from JB on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. I told you we've got some fun things in the works once we get to 600 subscribers on YouTube. JB on YouTube, though, says, when we get to 666 subscribers, does that mean a remote broadcast in the 66666 zip code?
Doesn't exist. I actually Googled this.
What?
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Does 66665 exist?
I don't know. Where I think we're in 66614 here.
I believe that is correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
the 6 because I'm not giving away my home address, but we got 666 blank blank zip code throughout Topeka.
Yes, lots of those. I now have one of those.
2 year,
yeah.
2 year, 30 million. The player options for 2026 for Lugo, so they've got him for next year.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Oh, that is good.
That's very positive. I thought it was after Waka is on a 1-1. If I remember correctly, he has an option year next year.
I think that's correct. I'll double check.
Waka's been positive. If Lugo was even pitching like Waka, I would say that's been positive for the Royals this year. You just need to raise the floor of that pitching staff. But man, he has just been absolutely incredible.
Player option, $6 million.
Okay.
Only if the club option is declined. So there's a there's a team option for $16 million next year.
Wanted to touch on the weekend that was for both KU and K-State recruiting. We'll start with the Cats here. Lincoln Cure, number 2 prospect in the state of Kansas, was, according to 24/7, was on campus this weekend. K-State brought out the big guns. They took him to Colbert Hills for some golf. Avery Johnson was with him all weekend. Dylan Edwards was taking some pictures with them. Got all the Kansas kids involved.
They did a late night photo shoot at the stadium.
They did, yeah. Edwards and Johnson were there with him, taking photos with him. He put on the all whites. I know Tim Fitzgerald over at Go Power Cat did his daily delivery about all the recruits want to wear the all white uniforms. K-State should wear them more often. We'll ask Fitz about that later this week. I'm going to give you a hot take, maybe an unorthodox take to this. I think they wasted Avery's time. What? Lincoln Cure's going to K-State, guys. I'm going to tell you that right now. I apologize, KU brethren who are out there who were tweeting all weekend like, oh, did you see Matt Nagy's son is coming to KU? That means the Chiefs are going to be watching every game. Guys, save your breath. Don't. He's going to K-State. That's not a report. I'm just telling you he's going to K-State. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's great for Kansas State. Dylan Edwards probably could have done something more productive than go to a visit where they didn't need him this weekend. I'm joking, obviously, but he's going to K-State.
Yeah, and this is like you said, it's not like reporting. It's just people in the know in Manhattan have been pretty confident in that recruitment really throughout, and nothing that has happened in the last 7 to 14 days has made anyone in Manhattan any less confident.
Right.
Let's just put it that way.
When Colin Klein went to Texas A&M and the needle did not move at all on the Cure recruitment, you could have just locked it down then. You really could have. Cool of him to say, hey, I'm going to go see College Station. I'm going to go see Eugene. I'm going to, KU's been on me. They've been good to me. I'll go check them out. Sure.
I'd take all the official visits I was allowed. I'd take them to schools I wasn't really interested in.
You're allowed, starting next year, I think, an infinite number of them.
I'm going to Florida Gulf Coast. They don't have a football team? Details. I'm going to hang out on the beach for a weekend.
I mean, shoot, I would do the same
round
thing.
of golf, like
yeah, right.
No joke, man.
No, that
I can't even get on Colbert Hills.
So that was a big weekend for K-State. Cure is obviously the local crown jewel. Number 2 in the state behind Andrew Babalola, the offensive lineman from Blue Valley Northwest. He's going out of state.
SEC.
Yeah, that's his recruitment exploded. I remember when he was first being recruited locally because he's pretty new to football, if I remember correctly. KU was doing a really good job on him. And then some teams down south watched his tape and they said, "Yeah, you ain't staying in Kansas." Nah, brother, you're coming down here, and he's going to get to go wherever he wants. I was talking about this with it was either Michael or with Fitz last week. There are 2 5-stars in the state of Kansas and multiple 4-stars. That's crazy. And it's awesome, but it's also crazy. For the KU weekend, Jayhawks locked down a couple of more recruits, including, as I mentioned a moment ago, Tate Nagy, Matt's kid, who plays quarterback, actually, but is going to convert to wide receiver when he comes to KU. Transition, thank you. When he comes to KU. Sounds like the right call. Good athlete. Hasn't been graded by 24/7 yet. Sure, he will be here soon. It's been a good couple of weeks for KU. They have gone from, I think it was 5 commits to now 13 in the class for 2025. Recruiting a lot like a certain team that wears purple in Manhattan has over time, and getting more local kids who maybe have flown under the radar a little bit, taking flyers on a Tate Nagy who's going to switch positions, and that's already known. A Brandon Schmelsley, who we talked about last weekend from Axtell, who is an unbelievable athlete, but there's always going to be questions, fair or unfair, when you transition from 8-man to 11-man football, going from high school to college. But it's been a productive couple of weekends for KU, and it's going to be a small class. That's been known. Swain's been reporting that for a long time now. It'll be a small high school class, not a full 25, but it's been productive, and I think that's all you can ask for here for KU.
They've honed in on the guys that they want, and they're picking them off one by one, and it just goes to show you how much, and easier being a relative term here, how much easier it is to recruit when you've got something to sell on the field.
Mm-hmm.
You've got something to sell beyond a vision. You've got reality to sell. You've got an 8-win season. You've got a bowl win. You've got preseason buzz. You've got a new stadium.
Or you got new facilities.
Stadium renovations being built. It's not a vision anymore. It's not on paper. It's not a trust this. This is what this is.
Mm-hmm.
We can give you this. You inherit this. And not you have to wait for it, or you have to make it happen. And like that was appealing. That's an appealing pitch for a lot of guys. You can build a program on that, but you sustain a program when you've got something concrete that you can say, this is the flag planted. This is what we're doing. Not this is what we hope to do.
The big thing was getting a couple of wide receivers, Nagy and then Jackson Cook, who's a Georgia kid, 3-star as well. I was watching highlights from the Guaranteed Rate Bowl last night. I just wanted something
as
to do.
One does.
Yeah, naturally. It's been a while since KU's won one of those. 2 things stood out. Well, 3 for one. One, I hope KU beats UNLV by 90 this year when they play at Sporting Park at Children's Mercy. What a dirty team. Secondly, I love Jason Bean. You will not catch me saying a bad thing about Jason Bean, and that is why I will say it this way. Lunatic, absolute lunatic of a quarterback. Love the guy forever. Oh my God. Just no desire to be safe with the ball at all. Some of the worst interceptions you've ever seen. Luke Grimm, Lawrence Arnold, and Quentin Skinner as a trio, they are insane. That is in a preposterous group of receivers, and they all graduate after this year.
Yeah.
And after that, you got Doug Emillion and Trenton, like those are your wide receivers going forward for KU. Like it's a little bleak, so they needed to add some wide receivers to that group, and thankfully we're able to do so.
I'll be going to walk-on tryouts this fall, just so Brendan can fulfill that prophecy.
You look like you could haul in a back shoulder fade, Trent.
I can see it.
I played DN and tight end in high school, but it was only 8-man, so
I can see it, though.
I think if us 4 went out there for the Guardians series and played with the Guardians, we could probably pitch 4 straight quality starts against the Royals.
One of these days, we're going to need to talk to one of the teams and say, hey, we keep making this joke. We want to actually see it. Can I get like 10 throws from Jalen Daniels? Can we get like 10 pitches to Nick Lofton just to like see what would happen?
10 dingers.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'd actually be kind of cool. Like as a regular Joe, like AI gave up a batting practice home run to a actual baseball player.
10 balls into the visiting bullpen.
I would hit the guy 10 times if we're being completely honest. Coming up next, Dan missed a lot the last 2 weeks while he's out. how's being a new dad like? We'll talk about it next year on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. This is 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, Dan, Spencer, Trenton with you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Big day in NBA history today. By the way, did you know that the NBA draft begins in 2 days?
Wednesday, right? Yeah.
There's never been less hype for a draft ever. Like the baseball draft gets more hype than this NBA draft.
I've never known less about the consensus number one pick in a draft than I do this year. I could not tell you a thing about Zachary Rizache.
No, I could not either.
I don't even know if that's right.
I've also
I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I know he's French.
Yeah.
I don't know what position he plays. I don't know if he can dribble a basketball.
I've
frankly.
also not seen the top 3 teams have their picks on the table to trade.
Yeah, but why would you want to take it? Like, I'll take a future
The
pick.
Hawks,
Why the hell
Wizards,
not?
and Rockets, according to the Ringer, are listening to trade offers for their selection.
I'd love to pick number one in a good draft.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
In NBA draft history, though, the Clippers have twice had the number 1 overall pick on this day in history. In 2004,
Michael Olawuke? No. Too early.
Jump the gun. 2004, they took Sean Livingston, which not really their fault. That didn't work. He had a cataclysmic injury, and then actually became a pretty good role player.
Yeah, he was a nice player for those championship Warriors teams. Yeah, he had a good career.
The mid-range god. Unbelievable on the mid-range game. 1998 on this day, the Clippers drafted Michael Olawuke.
That's the candy man.
Yeah. I was watching a clip from TNT's coverage of the draft that year. One, Ernie Johnson tossing it to Hubie Brown. Awesome. Look what they took from us. Secondly, his story is incredible. Like a tremendous story. What a bad basketball player.
Yeah, was not good.
Can you imagine drafting a player who scored 4 points a game as the number 1 overall pick. That's like drafting a quarterback who had a 4 to 14 touchdown to interception ratio, number 1 in the NFL draft.
That's the Clippers for you. I mean, It's not like the rest of the draft was any good. Like Mike Bibby was the 2, Anton Jameson was the 4, Vince Carter was the 5, Dirk Nowitzki was the 9, Paul Pierce was the 10.
You just kept going on and on.
Not like it was a good draft or anything.
Not at all.
Not like there were good players, perennial all-stars, future Hall of Famers, and NBA champions behind that number 1 pick. But the Clippers are the Clippers, and they've always been the Clippers, and that's why they'll always be the Clippers.
Speaking of the Clippers, have either you seen Clipped?
Yes, I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's great. I love that. I look more like JJ Redick than the guy they cast to play JJ Redick. But once you get past that, great show. So over the top.
I hate who they casted for Blake Griffin too.
Oh yeah,
it was like 6'2".
Nothing like Blake Griffin.
No. This has a chance to be the worst draft of all time for the NBA. The worst of all time. Trenton in my ear just said Anthony Bennett, all-time bad first overall pick. Agreed. Yes. That draft at least, like Giannis was in that draft. Oladipo had some good years before his leg fell apart. Like there were some okay. Rudy Gobert was in that draft.
Yeah.
The other one is the year 2000. 2000 is the other candidate for all-time worst NBA draft.
Yes.
Along with this year. Kenyon Martin went first overall. Good player. That's it. Jamal McGlure was an all-star. That's it.
Yes. Those were the only 2 players drafted in the first round that ever made all-star game.
Michael Redd was a nice player.
Yeah.
But like the Bulls drafted
Jamal Crawford had a nice career.
The Bulls drafted AJ Guyton. Fake. No, that's not a real player.
Remember him at IU.
That's not a real player. On the positive front, you're back after 2 weeks off.
I am back.
Although you weren't really off. You had stuff to do. You had to learn how to be a parent.
Yes, yeah. I cannot imagine not having that time off. Shout out to paternity leave. Like I don't know how like professional athletes, like baseball players, we hear about, he's going on the paternity list, and they're gone for like 2 games. Mm-hmm. And they just come back and they're in the lineup batting 5th. Like how
in Milwaukee while their wife and child are in Oakland.
How are you doing that? I needed the last 2 weeks to learn how to function as a human while caring for another human alongside another human, my wife. Like I needed that time to like learn how to function. And have I mastered it? Nope. Am I anywhere close? But we're getting better every day. We're all very much in a day-to-day situation, and I've never appreciated that sentiment more than I do now. Keeping little man alive.
We have a comment here from Vance on YouTube. Says, "Hello, gentlemen. Who's the guest host?"
I deserve that. I was gone a long time.
Other than the private equity discussion, which dominated these airwaves for a couple of days, is there anything else that you really missed not getting to talk about?
Coleman Hawkins, that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
K-State looks like they might be a preseason top 25 team. After we were worried they were going to botch their transfer portal class, and they don't have any good players, and oh my God, they're going to finish 12th in the Big 12. And
as it turns out, when the coaching staff for K-State, who I like, let me preface, I like Jerome Tang, I like their coaches. As it turns out, when they stopped being goofballs on Twitter and started actually like really trying hard to recruit transfers, their whole offseason changed. The whole thing.
They got the NIL commitment they needed, obviously.
Yeah.
And they started, being some serious players in that space. And now not only are they going to be like talented, they got some like real guys, but they're going to be fun.
Would you agree with my assertion from the other day that they have entered a no excuses year?
No excuses for what? No excuses if they don't what?
Top half of the Big 12, and I left it fairly open-ended, but a high-ish NCAA tournament seed. Like better, like 5-ish.
So the league is so tough.
It is.
Right? Like I think there's going to be a really good, a top 25 team is going to finish like 9th in the league.
Sure.
Like you can be really good and finish in the bottom half of the Big 12 this year. That's just the way it's going to be. So I do think though that this team has a much higher ceiling than what we expected at the start of the transfer portal circuit or cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that they've got a real good opportunity in front of them. They certainly can't miss the tournament. I don't think they're going to. But this is a team that if it all gels together, they should go the second weekend. And if it doesn't, then they're going to have to kind of reevaluate again how they approach the portal and how they approach putting a team together.
Speaking of college sports, Spencer and I were talking about this the other day. Can you name 6 quarterbacks better than Garrett Green in the Big 12?
Yes.
Who wrote that? Where did that come
Was
from?
it PFF?
No, so somebody that I know that works in Martinsburg and
That's
radio said he saw the Phil Steele, and he quoted it and said, I can't name 3 quarterbacks better than
Garrett Green.
And I was like,
Healthy Cam Rising.
And that list didn't even include either Jalen Daniels or Avery Johnson.
yeah.
Yeah, I understand if you're like outside of the Sunflower State sphere of influence and you say, let's pump the brakes on Avery Johnson. We've only ever seen him start one game. Let's pump the brakes on Jalen Daniels because he's always hurt. Like, I understand that. Those guys on the field, their ceilings are so much higher than Garrett Green's. Like,
yes,
if they play 12 games, they're going to outproduce Garrett Green. Like, I don't think that's up for debate at all. I'd take Fafita. I'd take Healthy Cam Rising. I'd take Shador Sanders. I would probably take Donovan Smith.
I would take Rocco Becht.
Yeah, I'd take him too.
I like Becht a lot.
Yeah, really.
I would take him over Garrett. He's
really
like
good freshman year.
Diet Rocco Becht. Like, that's what Garrett Green is. It's a really good league of quarterbacks. Really good league of quarterbacks.
Garrett Green is like a young Alan Bowman. Which is
a decade ago, yeah.
Objectively funny thing to say about, like, that's a fine college quarterback. I don't think Garrett Green's a bum.
No.
I just think that there are a lot of
all those other dudes
quarterbacks
are better.
with much higher ceilings in the conference.
Yeah, that take
I might even
blew me away.
I might even take DeQuan Finn. Baylor.
I would listen to that.
Kid was a MAC player of the year last year.
If Rashada had stayed at Arizona State, I would have listened to that argument. Rashada's got talent. He's a head case, but he's got tons of talent.
Yeah, this tweet reads, you simply cannot tell me there are 4 quarterbacks in the Big 12 that are better than Garrett Green.
Why, yes, I can.
Absolutely. Actually, quite easily.
And in fact, I can do it simply.
Yeah.
I just did.
I literally
really easily
just laughed for 5 minutes about that tweet and that guy.
That is hysterical. What has been the hardest part about being a dad for approximately 17 days?
The hardest part, it's a lot of it's hard, man. Like the hard thing is your kid's crying, and you don't know why, and you're trying everything and you can't. Yesterday it was because he just needed to poop. Like you
been there, brother.
Yeah, you celebrate bowel movements as a new parent in a way that I never would have expected. When he pooped this morning, my wife and I high-fived. Like it was a big deal. It had been a while. Not important. I didn't need to put my son's business out there in these streets, but it had been a while, and he was uncomfortable. You could tell he needed to poop, and when he did, it was a great excitement. But no, like not knowing, you can't communicate with them. They're just little babies. You're just trying to soothe them. You're trying to give them what they need, and you don't know exactly what it is. You're guessing at everything. You're tired. Your brain is fried physically. Like I did. That tweet was no joke. I do think I pulled my oblique. And like walking around holding Asher, that's my son's name, is very difficult because of that on one side of my body. So a lot of it is hard, but it is also extremely rewarding. And I'm just amazed by how much you can love someone. I guess that's at the risk of being, and we're coming up against the hour break, at the risk of being not sounding manly or whatever. It's just amazing how much you can love someone. That's what I really have learned through all of this. And my wife too. It's amazing how much you can love someone like your wife who you're going through all of this with. But no, it's just my heart has grown multiple sizes. It's been a great experience, even though it's been a hard one.
Is she doing all right?
Yeah,
she's also been through a lot.
Yes, she certainly has. Better every day.
Well, we're glad to have you back. We have to get to a commercial break. We'll talk some NFL next hour, including with Matt Verderame here on 580 Sports Talk Live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. Brendan Dworzinski here, Dan Lucero there, Spencer Dupuis there, and Trenton Kraxner over there. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Monday afternoon. Whether you're listening on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, online at 580WIBW.com, or watching the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us there. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour of the show, plenty of NFL to get to. ESPN's offseason grades came out. Pretty high marks for the Chiefs. I agree. We'll see what you guys think about it. That's coming up here momentarily. We'll also recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly. I guess you've got plenty of leeway. Your weekend, in a sense, has been 2.5 weeks.
Very long weekend. That's one way to put it. I'm going to try not to do like every weekend. Oh, it's good. My baby did something cute. The bad, baby blew out a diaper. The ugly, did I mention there was a diaper blowout? Like it's going to be more than that eventually, but I'm going to keep it 100 with you folks. I have not gotten to watch a lot of sports, probably still more than my wife would prefer, but I have not gotten to watch a ton of sports in the last 2.5 weeks. A little bit of the Royals here and there.
We did see from your Twitter picture the day that Asher was born that you were in fact had a baseball game.
We did have the ball game in the delivery room. Yes, that was. I don't know how I swung that, to be honest with you.
What else? I was going to say, what was that? Don't go into all the intimate detail here, but was it like, hey, I'm going to put the game on? Is that cool? Or were you like Xbox dad? Which I have been told, if that day ever comes, that is not an option.
No, absolutely not. No.
Well, he said it wasn't an option on the show. He goes,
like during the process,
yeah,
right? Like there's a process.
Well, yes,
that like, not to again belabor it, no pun intended, because like people understand that it can be a long process. Like we went into being induced the day after our due date. Like people, frequent listeners of the show probably remember it was a couple of Wednesdays ago when I dipped out at 4 o'clock, and then I left you guys to come up with a new hour out of whole clock because the Royals banged their game right as I was walking out the door.
I think we did okay.
I'm glad you managed. I was a little worried for you, but I'm glad you managed. But anyway, so my wife was induced that afternoon, and Asher was born the next morning. So there's that whole period of time where you're just kind of waiting, and like obviously my wife's kind of in agony because she's in the birth giving process, and there's the contractions, there's the epidural, there's all of this, and so the TV is not on at any point during any of that. Asher was born. They take him to go and check him out, make sure everything's okay, and it just sort of leaves you and your wife, and you're just a husk. I slept maybe 30 minutes in that night, and that was 30 more minutes than my wife probably got. So you're just sort of operating and just doing things and not really communicating. And I think I just turned the game on. It was just a natural thing. Oh, the Royals are playing this afternoon. Let's see what they're up to. And then, the baby was back in the room before I know it. Yeah, I sat there with my son in my arms, and we watched the Royals win that day game against Cleveland. That was Asher's first Royals game.
A good start.
Yes.
Also, not a great indication of what the future is going to be like.
No. Hey, I tell you, we watched the game the next night, that big comeback against Seattle. I'm thinking maybe Ash is a good luck charm. Not to be, at least to this point. You never know. Things can change.
Yeah, you even tweeted about getting a Bobby Witt jersey for him.
I did not do that, but good friends meet your needs. Great friends anticipate them. My best friend from back in Denver did send a Royals onesie with Lucero on the back and the number 24 for his birth year.
There you go.
That was pretty neat. So we'll bust that out, and maybe that'll switch up the Royals mojo. Get Ash on board.
Hopefully, whatever it'll take. It is cool though. He has never known a world without a superstar shortstop.
This is true. We thought about that. The home team, such as they are for somebody born in this part of the country, are going to have Bobby Witt Jr. and Patrick Mahomes on them for the next decade, doing amazing things. And if my son chooses to follow sports, which I'm going to give him a choice, but it's hard to imagine he doesn't follow a little bit in his dad's footsteps. Those are going to be like the hometown guys for him, so to speak. And he could do worse. He could do a lot worse.
No doubt about that. We'll talk some more Royals baseball coming up a little bit later on in the show. Did want to address this from... Okay, timeout. Actually, I need to be interrupted. So Spencer was mentioning earlier when he was talking about how he said the Royals were cooked on Friday's show. Joe on YouTube, loyal listener Joe, said to us when we were talking about how bad things had been for the Royals the other day. He was like, "Do not say this. My emotions are too fragile." I believe that is a close paraphrase. Joe just commented for us on our YouTube stream. Dan, you were staring into the souls of two jinxes. Listen, A, Spencer was a lot more negative than me. B, they did this to themselves.
I also prefaced it by saying I'm going to be pessimistic. Don't hate on me.
Listen.
Again, but like I told you, that's like saying no offense and then offending somebody. That doesn't absolve you from being offensive.
Either way, this is a better season than last year.
That is true.
We got a lot of season left, guys. That's all I'm going to say. We got a lot of season left. We got a whole half of the marathon still yet to run.
This
whole
comes
lot
from
of
the guy.
Starts left.
This comes from the guy that predicted between the three of us that they would have the best record.
That's true. You did.
I said 81 and 81.
Maybe you're just telling us that you're emotionally reactive.
Yes. That you're a bit of a front runner, that you like to bail when things go south for the first time.
Yeah, this is your fault. Just messing with you. All right, NFL. I wanted to make sure we got to this. Seth Walder is one of the analytics guys for ESPN's NFL coverage. And he came up with his 2024 offseason grades this past week. He ordered them online, A through D. Nobody worse than a D. One of those is really funny, by the way. We'll get to that later. He's got the Chiefs with his second best offseason grade, tied for second best, along with 4 other teams, or is it 3 other teams? Gave the Chiefs an A-. So for every team, he said he marked their biggest move, a move he liked, and a move he disliked. For the Chiefs, the biggest move, trading L'Jarius Sneed. Yeah, he should have been an all-pro. That you trade any guy like that, that makes sense. Move I liked, signing Hollywood Brown, 1 year, $7 million. I think everybody agrees with that. Great deal for the Chiefs. Move I disliked, the rolling guarantee in Chris Jones's contract. I'm going to be honest with you. If the worst move was the structure of a contract for what could be a future Hall of Famer who is still producing at a high level, I'm good. That's cool with me. I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, you're really picking nits if you're talking about the structure of a contract of a guy who is playing at a Hall of Fame level into his 30s. Like that is ultimate nitpicking.
So the nuts and bolts of what Walder said here about the Chiefs offseason. They won the Super Bowl with a major weakness at receiver, but were smart enough to try not to repeat such a thing. They added Brown, not a superstar, but a major upgrade on that 1 year, $7 million deal. And while I normally criticize draft day trade ups, the move for Xavier Worthy was worthwhile because it was a cheap move and it Worthy brings a level of speed that the Chiefs need. Jones gets his big contract, but I probably wouldn't have paid that much to a guy that old. Okay, so what? Whatever. They trade Snead for a 3rd-round pick rather than pay him on the franchise tag. While the compensation was less than I expected, I don't fault the Chiefs for making the move. They have to be intentional about where they put their resources. They've already got McDuffie, who will get paid eventually. Also, let's not forget, L'Jarius Sneed's knee might blow up. Like, there's a non-zero chance that knee is a ticking time bomb. Offensive tackle remains a question, but they did add Kingsley Suamataia in the draft, who might be able to start. Also, they added a backup in Carson Wentz, an underrated addition at backup quarterback, who's a strong insurance option. I'll tell you this, I like Carson Wentz more as a backup than I like him as a starter. Yeah. He turns the ball over more than I would like out of the backup, but also the ceiling for him as a player is higher than, a Gabbert or a Henne. So I agree. I think that's a good backup option for this team. Andy Reid's scheme is not going to let him screw up. More than anything, they're going to protect him from himself with what the scheme looks like. All in all, you take this Chiefs offseason. If you're saying I'm only giving an A or an A+ to a team that had super high-end moves, okay, fine. But I also don't think you could go any lower with an offseason that I think unilaterally is good moves. Like, okay, argue about the structure of the contract for Jones, fine. You kept a Hall of Famer in the building long-term. He's going to finish his career with the Chiefs. You improved your biggest weakness, which was your wide receiver room. One way or the other, you either added competition for your starting left tackle in Morris, or you added your starting left tackle in Kingsley Suamataia and added another year onto the timeline with another rookie. The Carson Wentz edition, I think, was smart. Re-signing Drew Tranquil for multiple years, I think, was a smart deal. I like the draft overall that the Chiefs had. I don't think they've made a bad move. And I think trading Snead, while he was great last year, if you're banking on he's a little bit older, he's going to get paid, and we're worried about his knee, then trading him for a day 2 pick is probably the safe bet.
Even if you're grading on a curve, and I think you have to with the Chiefs, because the goal is not just, stay the course. The goal is not just continue to win. The goal for the Chiefs is to do something that no NFL team has ever done, win 3 straight Super Bowls. So even if you're grading on that curve for this offseason for the Chiefs, did they take steps towards improving their roster or stabilizing their roster to the point where they have given themselves a chance to win a 3rd straight Super Bowl? 100% they have done that. And that's even with the trade of L'Jarius Sneed, who played at such a high level last year. But when you look at what the Chiefs have done at cornerback over the last handful of years, which includes developing L'Jarius Sneed from a 4th-round pick, and not a heralded 4th-round pick either, into the player he became, I think you give the Chiefs and their coaching staff, the defense coached by Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive back coached by Dave Merritt, you give them the benefit of the doubt, and you say they're not going to be as hurt by this move as another team might be, because Trent McDuffie's ready to step in and be the number one cornerback. After all, only one of McDuffie and Sneed made the All-Pro team last year, and it wasn't L'Jarius Sneed. And you have depth, experience, guys who've been with the team to step in and fill those snaps that you're losing with L'Jarius Sneed departing. So your biggest move on paper, and according to Seth Walder here, was not one that you can't recover from. It's not one that is going to be so damaging to your chances of winning a 3rd straight Super Bowl, while the other moves you've made, adding to the wide receiver core, drafting the left tackle of the future, solidifying things behind Mahomes, keeping the core member of the defense, the potential future Hall of Famer and Chris Jones, in town for the long haul, for the back end of his career. All of those things make you as or more likely to make history. And so even if you are grading on a curve, I think an A is right. An A- is right for the Chiefs.
Let me ask you about that left tackle spot. I heard something while listening to a podcast this week, and I have to remember which show it was. If it was the Athletic Football Show or if it was the Mina Kimes show. I think it was the Athletics Football Show. One of the hosts said he thinks the Chiefs' preference is that Kingsley Suamataia wins the job. That it's not as simple as, hey, we got a left tackle either way. Yeah. Either one of these young guys take it. He said, I think the Chiefs feel like it's a miss right away if Wanya Morris wins the job over Suamataia. Would you agree with that? I can see it from both directions. I think I kind of lean yes, but that's because I liked Suamataia a lot. I would have taken him in the 1st round. I would have been content with him at 32. No questions asked. I'm just a big fan of his. But on the other side, I can see saying, hey, look, we don't care. We just need a cheap player, and whoever that is, we're good with.
Yeah, I think that either way it turns out, you still have a homegrown option at left tackle. You still have a developmental success story if either one of those guys wins the job. If Suamataia doesn't win the job, it will be because Morris has actual in-game experience, NFL experience, and that won out. That and some of the coaching he got at Oklahoma, which has been a program that has turned out a lot of high-level starting NFL offensive linemen.
So many of them.
If Suamataia wins the job, it's because his tools and his potential outweigh some of that experience with Morris, and you were able to develop him and get him ready to go. Andy Heck and the coaching staff were able to get him ready to go from day one. Either way, it's a player developmental win, or at least it can be spun that way, I guess.
The other contenders, or at least who I picked out as some of the other contenders in the AFC and the grades they got. So the best one, and I put them on this list because they were a playoff team. They played the Chiefs in the playoffs, the Dolphins. Seth Walder gave them an A-. Liked them signing Kendall Fuller, cornerback. Disliked them signing your guy, Jordan Brooks, the linebacker formerly of the Seahawks. They did add a starting center who is not abysmal. That's important. They desperately needed that on their offensive line. But here, biggest move, losing defensive tackle Christian Wilkins and guard Robert Hunt in free agency. Their offensive line is bad, and Christian Wilkins, you codo argue, was their 2nd best player. And honestly, depending on what you think of Tyreek Hill and Christian Wilkins, you might argue he was their best player. How do you have an A offseason if you lost 2 of your very best players and maybe your best player at your weakest position? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, the other additions for them, they
It's all guys on 1-year deals.
like Jordan Brooks replacing Jerome Baker. That ended up being a trade essentially because Baker signed with the Seahawks.
Yeah.
That ends up kind of being a 1-for-1. And honestly, like that's 6 of 1 for half a dozen of the other. As far as I'm concerned, I might even like Baker better.
I do like. I think Jordan Brooks is a fine player. I think Jerome Baker's a better player though.
But so okay, they replace Brooks or Baker with Brooks. They add Kendall Fuller, which is Walter's favorite move of the bunch. And like Kendall Fuller's a fine defensive back. He's fine corner in the league. They're not paying him a lot. He's a decent player. They replace Andrew Van Ginkel essentially with Shaquille Barrett, who is like, again, maybe they cancel out a little bit.
Yeah.
Barrett's best days probably behind him. Van Ginkel, was really good last year.
He was great last year.
They didn't replace Brandon Jones in the defensive backfield.
Jordan Poyer.
Oh yeah,
which weirdly he doesn't even list here.
Yeah,
I thought that was one of their best moves.
Yeah,
that is odd. Yeah, so like they added Odell Beckham Jr. Great, cool, more speed, more Plan A.
If he's on the field,
they keep doubling down on offense on Plan A. We're faster than you. That's Plan A. We're going to run by you. Everything we do is going to be fast, hyper speed, ludicrous speed. We're going faster than you. What's your Plan B when you get to the playoffs and it's Alaska degrees and you got to go beat Kansas City or you got to go beat Buffalo or you got to go beat Cincinnati or Cleveland and it's cold? What's Plan B? I don't know.
And if you don't have one, you can't win.
Yes. Yeah. We can't win a championship. And that's the goal, right? Like you're trying to, like, if you're Miami, it's not about, we're challenging Buffalo for the AFC East title. No, you got to go win a Super Bowl. Like it's been.
Especially because they are about to pay Tua.
It's been 50 years, hasn't it? Like they're coming up on a pretty long drought.
It's been 52 since the perfect season.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time since the Dolphins won a Super Bowl. Like, it's got to be about that for the Dolphins. And I don't think they're getting any closer to that goal while they have the quarterback still on the rookie deal. While they're playing on easy mode, they did not get any closer, I think, to winning a Super Bowl. So I can't give that an A. No, that's the curve you got to grade the Dolphins on because it's time for them to make that leap, and they haven't.
Agreed. Other contenders, both the Ravens and Bengals got a B. I have worries about the Ravens' offensive line. I think you could argue that they have a high ceiling. Like, if Roger Rosengarten, the rookie from Washington, is really good at tackle right away, well, suddenly you feel great about that group. If he plays like a rookie tackle who was taken in the second round, I think you've got some legitimate worries. I like that they signed Derrick Henry. I like that Lamar has thinned down. They've made a big deal about the fact that he lost weight so he can scramble a little bit better and have some more of that straight line speed. Cincinnati with a B. I guess like they replaced DJ Reader with Sheldon Rankins. Okay, that like at best is a wash. They lost Chidobe Awuzie, who was starting at corner. I don't know what the hell they're going to do in their defensive secondary because they've lost a lot of talent back there. Lost Jesse Bates last year. Lost Awuzie this year.
Got worse at running back. Go from Joe Mixon to Zach Moss.
I told Spencer this the other day. We were talking about off seasons. I would argue that they didn't necessarily get worse. I think they intentionally tried to get different because I think Moss is number 2. I think Chase Brown's going to start for them, who was a rookie last year. I think Cincinnati went all in on trying to be more explosive at running back, probably at the expense of being consistent at running back. Because Mixon's very much like a souped up version of if you need 4 yards, he'll get you 5. If you need 7 yards, he'll get you 5. Like that's kind of what Mixon is. Not a very explosive player. Whereas I think he makes Houston better because they had no run game at all. Cincy, I think, is going for more explosiveness. I've said it all along. They have 1 year. They have this year where they are going to be, I think, the number 1 contender for the Chiefs title in the AFC because they've got all the pieces still. And then everyone's going to leave because they're dirt cheap and they're not going to pay anybody. Yeah. And that's, I think, where the end of the line comes. They gave San Francisco a B. Fine. Yeah, that's whatever. Additionally, the other contenders, they gave the Texans a B-. The deal they disliked was restructuring Stephon Diggs' contract. Okay, I get it. The Bills, a C+. Yeah, I mean, they got rid of a bunch of dudes.
This is the take your medicine year. We've been over that.
Yeah. The funniest ones, though, are the worst grades they gave out. They gave the Cowboys a D+. How is that not an F? They've done everything badly. They have not signed CeeDee Lamb. They have not signed Dak Prescott. They have not added any meaningful players on their offensive line.
They haven't even brought back a guy that everybody keeps saying they're going to bring back in Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah,
everybody is saying that there was one thing from PFF that put him, we were talking, well, you guys were both not here at the time, but Trent and I were going through it as best cornerbacks, I think. And they had Stephon Gilmore as a Cowboy, but he is currently a free agent. He hasn't signed a deal with anybody.
That should be an F. And yet still, ESPN gave a lower grade to the Raiders.
That's hysterical.
They are tied for the worst grade they gave out with the Saints.
The Cowboys thing is so funny because Walter writes here, with such a strong core, Dallas is a Super Bowl contender. Really? Are we sure? Because last time we saw the Dallas Cowboys, they were getting dog walked at home by a quarterback making his first road playoff start.
Dude, they
dog walked,
blasted, and Dak looked awful until the game was over and Green Bay was playing back.
I'm not buying it.
I'm not either.
I'm done buying them as I know that they've got some really impressive bold-faced names at the top of that roster. Go win something, anything.
Exactly.
Also, if they don't pay Dak in the next couple of weeks, he's going to get $60 million next year. And Dak, that's going to be the going rate, and they're going to have to pay him.
Yeah. You can't.
They have bungled this so
badly. It is amazing that they have ended up in we talk about the Packers, where they went right from Favre to Rodgers. So they had the same quarterback situation for 25 years.
Uh-huh.
The Cowboys are now going into a second decade of the same quarterback situation because Dak Prescott is Tony Romo.
Yes.
That is a talented guy who can win you some big regular season games, but really you're just in a situation where you can't afford to be worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up paying a guy beyond what he's worth because you cannot afford to be any worse.
Yeah. Those are your offseason grades. We'd love to know what you would give the Chiefs. Tell us either on the Top City Metal Supply text line or in the 580 Sports Talk YouTube comments. We have to get to a break. We'll come back, recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly, then talk all things NFL with Matt and Verderame here on 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Dan, I will give you the floor first.
Good from the weekend. Like I said, I don't want to make like being new dad my entire personality, but the good for the weekend is just getting to the last 2.5 weeks, really spend the time with my newborn son and get to hold him and feed him and bond with him and do all of those things. Really fortunate that we have paternity leave, that was a policy and time off I was able to take advantage of. So was really, really grateful for that. Really, really grateful that you guys were able to hold things down. Not that I thought you wouldn't, but just
you idiots didn't burn the place down.
Yeah, thank God. I can't believe we didn't get canceled. You know, all of you guys, you get in this camp. No, with cancel culture, what it is these days. No, I'm just glad that I had that opportunity and was really grateful for it. And I know my wife was too. And if Asher could form coherent thought, he would probably be grateful for it as well. So yes, that was my good for the last 2.5 weeks, was getting to spend time with my son.
My good is that my favorite summertime sports team won a primetime game on Sunday night this weekend. And no, I am not talking about the dastardly Chicago Cubs, who I'm just mad at right now. No, ladies and gentlemen, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 3-0, even after losing Trevor Harris midway through the game. Do you know who Saskatchewan's backup quarterback is? Shea Patterson. I had to root for Shea Patterson last night. And we won.
He got benched in the XFL.
Yes, and the USFL. He gets benched everywhere. And yet we still won last night. Team of Destiny, 3-0.
I heard you and Trenton talking about that. I can't believe we have to deal with two people who follow the CFL.
When he's taking vacation next month, he's going to a game.
They're driving up to Canada.
He's even more hardcore than you.
Yeah.
I know. If I could make it,
terrifying.
Just telling Abby yesterday, if I could make it to Regina, we'd go to a game. Unfortunately, I cannot, so I'm not going to a game.
That's Regina, Saskatchewan, the town that rhymes with fun.
You're good, Spencer.
Yes, final weekend as a Home
Alone
solo occupant in my apartment. It was nice. I had the AC pumping. Knock on wood, the AC's working.
Still now.
My girlfriend's apartment in Maryland, it was not working.
Oh, well, yes.
I got some things reorganized. You know, you have to have double the amount of stuff coming into my apartment next week. So that was my good, is I got a bunch of stuff done.
You're bad?
Bad for the weekend, I would have to say, was the heat and humidity. We're at 100 degrees today for the first time. Every year, I think I complain about it when we have our first hot days of the year in Topeka. I complain about it every time. If there's one thing I could change, could make like home, like Colorado, it would be no humidity. I hate it so much. It is the bane of my existence. I hate just like standing up and I'm sweaty now. Terrible humidity.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
It's always bad. Every time we have our first hot day of the year around here, I complain. So, and weirdly, nothing ever changes. I complain and nothing changes.
But
I'm going to keep doing it. Don't get it twisted.
Write this down for June 24th of 2025. My bad is I meal prepped for the whole week yesterday, and I tried to add some new spices to the rice in my chicken and rice bowls. Gross. Terrible. Way too much chili lime seasoning. Yeah, it's bad. It's gross. You have a bad?
Yeah. The Nationals just completely blew it on Saturday night with a pitch clock violation. How are you still committing pitch clock violations? And it was to Dan's favorite team, the Rockies.
Somebody had to be the team to win on a walk-off pitch clock violation for the first time in baseball history. I'm so glad it was my beloved Purple Boys. Unfortunately, that was the only win they got on the weekend.
Yeah.
You have an ugly?
Ugly would be watching the Royals try to hit Saturday and Sunday. That was bad.
My ugly. Caitlin Clark's teammates in Indiana. Oh my God.
She's playing with some bums.
They had a great game, a competitive game with Chicago yesterday. They lost 88-87. Angel Reese is playing unbelievable basketball for this guy. If Caitlin Clark had league average teammates, they might have won by 20. Oh my, they're incompetent. Like, unfortunately, it's going to set women's basketball back because everyone tunes in to watch her and they have to watch idiots on the floor with her. Catch a pass. Oh my God, it's bad. You have an ugly real quick?
I do not. I would agree with Dan's the Royals not being able to hit.
Yeah, that's gross. We'll talk some NFL coming up on the other side of this break when we're joined by Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated on 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is Matt Verderame, who covers the National Football League for Sports Illustrated and SI.com. He is also the host of the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon and of That Football Show at the KC Sports Network. We finally spoke it into existence, Matt. They finally cut Isaiah Buggs today.
Hey, just about a month too late, but what the heck? It finally got. It's almost like they woke up and saw the news from a month ago, and they're like, "Wait a minute, we never put in the paperwork." But yeah, it finally happened. So they've now rid themselves of that head.
Maybe Brett Veach's Twitter was down. I mean, the website's broken for everybody. Thanks, Elon. Maybe he just really hadn't seen it.
Yeah, it's possible. It's Veach has got to have a burner, right? He's got to.
Oh yeah.
So. I mean, God knows he wouldn't be the first front office person who's ever texted me and be like, "Hey, saw what you tweeted the other day," and like I knew you were on there, I knew you were out there. So yeah, I mean, Brett's got to have a couple different burners right now, I'm sure.
I know Dan and I both have experience with this. It is never a great feeling when you meet someone for the first time or you talk to a connection and they say, "Oh yeah, I've seen you on Twitter." Never something you want to hear in public.
No. In fact, I'll tell you, one time early in my career, I met John Dorsey in Indianapolis at the scouting combine, and he was still the general manager of the Chiefs. I walked up to him. I was kind of new on the NFL reporting circuit. And said, hey, John, Matt Verderame, fan-sided. Just wanted to introduce myself. He's like, "I know who you are." I was like, "Oh, I don't know that's a good thing." He's like, "Nah, you're all right." It was one of the funnier interactions I think I've ever had with somebody in the NFL, even if it was like 30 seconds.
That also, though, totally confirms everything I've ever heard about or thought about John Dorsey, that interaction.
Just an awesome guy. It was almost like he wanted to see how I would react after. I know who you are. I was like, "Oh, all right, well, that's not great." And they're like, "Nah, you're all right." It was like, all right, cool. And he's one of the better guys. No nonsense, but hilarious.
That is tremendous. We were actually talking, speaking of the Chiefs, Matt, earlier on this hour about ESPN came out with a list of grades for every team's offseason. What letter grade would you give the Chiefs for this offseason? Because while they haven't maybe had, the huge blockbuster move, I don't think they've made a bad move, a bad draft pick, a bad acquisition, a bad, the Snead trade. I think it's been all positive from the very get-go.
Well, I guess I'll qualify it with, we're not talking about their off-field situation,
right?
Because if we're factoring that in, then it hasn't been all peaches and cream. But yeah, I would say A-, B+. Like, I don't think they've done anything that you'd be like, "Wow, that's incredible." But I think they did what they had to do, right? Like, they brought back Chris Jones, they brought back Drew Tranquill, they brought back Mike Gannon, who a lot of people thought was going to be gone. They kept plenty of cap flexibility. They traded Snead. Look, the Snead trade, I think everybody kind of felt was a little underwhelming, but as it went on, you realized that they probably weren't going to get a second-round pick. So I think they got market value, even if it was a little bit more diminished than what people hoped for. But Hollywood Brown got them on a great contract. Their draft class, I thought was very solid. I thought they did a very good job to draft. So I think overall, you're going to be pretty happy, right? I mean, I think you can't be. If you're a Chiefs fan, as far as like their on-field product, I don't think there's anything that they did that you would say, "Oh, that's a failure." I think they were good, they were solid. No massive losses other than, of course, Snead being gone. And I mean, look, there's a reason they're favorites or co-favorites about everywhere to repeat. They are loaded up.
Matt Verderame is our guest, covers the NFL for Sports Illustrated, also podcast host of the Matt Verderame Show and That Football Show, the latter of which can be found at the KC Sports Network. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. He joins us every Monday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk to talk all things NFL. The left tackle position, obviously the biggest question left for this roster. It's going to be either Wanye Morris or Kingsley Suamataia. If you could get an honest answer from Veach, from Reed, from Andy Heck, from all these guys, do you think the Chiefs have a preference who they would rather see win the job?
It's a really good question. I don't think so. Just knowing the way that they operate, I don't think they're internally rooting for one guy over the other. I think they're rooting for Morris to have developed from year one to year two. He was inconsistent when he played, but he flashed some really nice games. And with Suamataia, look, he's a kid who, a couple of years at BYU, some real experience to tackle, played left side, played right side. You know, when he comes in here and he gets a shot, and I would expect early in camp they're going to rotate them. They're going to give both guys a look. Like, what does that look like? You know, how much does that experience pay off? Does he need a lot more work? I think they just want to. Here's what I would say: they don't want to have to go break glass in case of emergency. They want one of those two guys to be good enough that when they're breaking camp in St. Joe's, that they're like, okay, we're good. We don't have to go out and bring in Donovan Smith. We don't have to panic. We'll be in good shape.
Our guest is Matt Verderame, covers the National Football League for Sports Illustrated, SI.com, and is also all over the place is the KC Sports Network and the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Joined us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. We're going to interrupt the football talk for a second here, Matt. I've got a 3-week-old son at home. I've been off the show the last couple of weeks on paternity leave, became a first-time father. I know you're a father yourself. I need your best advice at this stage of parenthood.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Hope it's all going well. Secondly, yeah, I've got 2 daughters, and I would tell you that every day is going to be a learning experience, and don't put too much pressure on yourself. Because I remember when we had our first daughter, Maisie, we had a million different people in our lives, some of which were not being asked to give advice, who just felt like it. And we're like, listen, here's what I did. Here's how hard this is. And it's like, you know what? You didn't raise this kid, so you have no clue. Like, the reality of it is, like, you may be well-intended, or you might just be a pain in the rear end. But the reality, like, I think so much of it is just, hey, look, they're your kids. They're going to respond differently to you. Like, be patient and understand, like, there are going to be some days where you are going to be, I don't know that I can handle this. That's fine. We all had days like that. And there are going to be other days that make it all worth it. And those days are going to far outweigh the other ones. So just be patient and be patient with yourself, too, because you're going to need it.
I appreciate that, Matt. Thank you very much. And yes, all things are going well so far. I appreciate you letting me indulge a little bit and ask for some advice on that. Back to the football. We're talking about teams with their off-season grades. One team that got a good grade from Seth Walter of ESPN, the Miami Dolphins. They got an A-, same grade that the Chiefs got. I look at the Dolphins, and I sort of feel like they're sort of running in place, that they're still very much the same team they were last year, that they've got one way to win football games, and when it gets cold or plan A doesn't work, they don't have a plan B. Do you think that the Dolphins took a meaningful step forward this offseason?
No, I don't, honestly. I actually think you could argue they took a step back. So while I agree with a lot of what Seth normally says, I would disagree with him there. I don't think they had an awful offseason. I think it was Marcus C. I thought their draft was okay. We'll see. I think take Chop Robinson early. We'll see how it works out. I think it's a little bit of a project. Not that he can't be good, but I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. And then, look, they lost Andrew Van Ginkel. And I think he's a really underrated player. He's a good player. Jerome Baker's gone. I get that they brought in Jordan Brooks. That's fine. He's a good player too. But I thought defensively they changed out a lot of guys. I don't know if they got better. And offensively, they lost some pieces on that line, specifically Robert Hunt, who got $100 million to Carolina. Now, to be fair to Miami, I would not have paid Robert Hunt $100 million. But he's gone. And I agree with you. I mean, what really is different about Miami? They're all speed. And if you can deal with Hill and Waddle to any extent, you're going to beat them, because there's really no other way for them to do it. I think Miami's a borderline playoff team, and I felt that way about them going into last year. Now, last year, to their credit, they weren't borderline. They made it comfortably, but yeah, they were not dominant by any stretch of the imagination.
We're joined by Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And Matt, I know you're kind of an insider, but an outsider for the Chiefs. What is your take on the Kansas government signing the bill to try to get the Chiefs over to Kansas, and how likelihood do you think it'll happen?
I think it's possible. I don't know that I'd say it's likely. I think it's still a lot of this stuff. Look, anything with politics, let's be real. It's all leverage. It's all about trying to get the best deal. I mean, if you're Clark Hunt, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get the best deal. You're trying to find a way to leverage yourself so that Missouri is going to give you the best possible deal, stay at your current place, and you pay the least amount of money. Now, I think Kansas is very serious about bringing the Chiefs over the state line, and I do think it's very possible. I mean, look, Arrowhead Stadium. I go to a lot of facilities around the league. It's one of the nicest in the league. That said, Arrowhead Stadium was built in 1972. Like, you could definitely, if you're the Chiefs, sell yourselves on the idea, hey, you know what? This stadium is 50 plus years old and it's had upgrades, but like we could build a brand new state of the art building that maybe even gets a Super Bowl at some point. If I were a betting man, I'd still bet on them staying in their current area, but I don't think it's impossible if they leave. And with every passing day and every time Kansas makes an overture, I certainly think more and more possible that the Chiefs move on.
Chatting with Matt Verderame, a few more questions for the national NFL writer for SI.com, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Matt, what'd you think of Travis Kelce getting on stage in London with Taylor Swift?
I think he's living a pretty good life. I just thought it was funny. He's out there with Colin Saunders' brother, just dancing around, enjoying himself. I mean, really, if you're Travis Kelce, where else would you rather be, right? I mean, you're in London with your incredibly famous, successful girlfriend. You're doing all right for yourself. I thought it was funny. I think the one thing I will say I appreciate about Travis Kelce, he does not take himself too seriously. He is willing to have a good time at all moments. And I think you saw that on full display out in London.
I wanted to make sure we asked you about Trevor Lawrence's new contract. I don't know if we were able to get to that over the last couple of weeks we were talking. Trevor Lawrence is a fascinating case for me because I don't think I've ever seen a bigger discrepancy for a quarterback between what like the NFL writing and podcasting world thinks of him, and that segment thinks the world of him, versus Joe Fan, who thinks the dude's a total bust and a nobody and Jacksonville's not going anywhere. I think it's a fascinating split. You had to pay him, obviously. I mean, that's the going rate for a quarterback. Where do you think Trevor is right now? Do you think he's the guy who you say, yes, bank on it, this is a guy who can win you a Super Bowl? Or has he left a little too much to be desired so far?
It's a really tough question. I would say that I think Jacksonville had to pay him. I think they were right in getting it done. I also think that to sit here and say that he has proven he can win a Super Bowl is incorrect. I mean, how has he proven that? They've been to the playoffs once in his career. Now, granted, I don't blame him for the Urban Meyer year. Okay, God could have played quarterback that year and they wouldn't have made the playoffs. But, it's kind of what it. I think. Look, I personally think he's a top 10 quarterback. I still think he's a guy who can really get the job done. But at the same point, is he in the class of Mahomes and Allen and Burrow? No, he's not. I mean, at this point in time, he's not. So if you're Jacksonville, you're banking on who I think is a very good quarterback becoming a great quarterback. And it's not a bad bet to make, but it's a bet. You don't know that for sure yet. This is not a sure thing.
I've got to ask about the Green Bay Packers and their news today, their front office news. So Mark Murphy, who's been the head of the team for quite a long time, since 2007 as the team's president and CEO, he has to leave next year. The Packers have bylaws in place that say if you're on the board or you're the CEO, you can't serve past the age of 70. So they hired Ed Policy is his name, which is talk about nominative determination. He's been with the team for a long time too. That was kind of well known he would take over. My biggest question is, why do the Green Bay Packers have a better organizational structure than the United States federal government?
I mean, I don't want to get myself in trouble on the radio, but have you seen the United States federal government?
Right. But it's such a fascinating structure, though.
I mean, there are PTAs that have a better structure. The Packers are fascinating. They're different, right? I mean, my buddy down the street actually owns a piece of the Packers. He's got a stock certificate in his office. I think that the Packers and the way they do it, it's one of the more unique, cool ways that an NFL franchise is run. And I think and really not just the NFL, any professional franchise. I mean, it's really unique. And I also think it's smart that they have an age limit. Like, look, you don't want a guy in there who's 97. Like, you want somebody who is young and vivacious and can do the job. And so Murphy's going to give away the policy. And I think, for the Packers, it's probably a good thing. Keep things rolling. And I don't expect it to change a whole heck of a lot, but Never bad to have a new voice in there and a younger voice at the same time.
I've always thought, and I feel like I've heard this take more and more, that it's almost a benefit, not a huge competitive one, because Packers haven't won a Super Bowl in 14 years. But the fact that you don't have some doofus owner, you don't have David Tepper interfering in everything, is a major advantage.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, absolutely. I think it's if you're the Packers, you don't have to worry about somebody coming in there who doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and then they're there for 50 years. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And, I also think that, quite honestly, I think the fans' voice in Green Bay matters more than in a lot of other cities. Do the Jets care about their fans? I mean, the last 50 years, it's just no. The Packers, look, they're not going to let the fans run the team, but, I think it does matter to some degree, how the fans, I think it has more of a weighted importance than it would in, say, a place like New York, a place like New England, a place like, Carolina at the moment, Washington. I do. I think it matters.
You can find Matt Verderame's coverage of the NFL all over, including at SI.com, the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon, and that football show at the KC Sports Network. Follow him on Twitter as well, at Matt Verderame. He joins us every Monday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. Thanks as always, Matt. Go tell your neighbor that a fellow owner says hello.
I will. Take care.
That's Matt Verderame from SI.com. Awesome stuff, as always, on the National Football League. We've got more Royals baseball to get to lead off the 4 o'clock hour, including some major roster news that's coming up on 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. halfway home on a Monday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Thanks for hanging out with us today. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. That's Dan Lucero, back from paternity leave. That is Spencer Dupuis. And on the other side of the glass, that is our summer intern, Trenton Kraxner. Here with you until 6 o'clock today, leading you into some 580 Sports Talk overtime. Royals baseball tonight against the Miami Marlins, game 1 of their 3-game set. We will preview that game and the series coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of the show. Also, some Royals news today. We will get to that momentarily. Some players coming up, some players going down. One player designated for assignment. That's coming up here shortly. Also in this hour, we've got our first What Is Wrong With You of the week. And additionally, Pro Football Focus ranking their receiver cores heading into 2024. Wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs as pass catchers. Where do the Chiefs fall? We'll tell you coming up later on this hour. You're welcome to join us on the Top City Metal Supply text line. 785-272-9429 is that text line number. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers. Top City Metal Supply will cut the exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel you need, tailored to your project's specifications. So start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. We also invite you to be a part of the show on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk's the name of our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed already, head on over to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, subscribe to the channel while you are there. Then you can watch along with the show. You can comment during the show. We told you earlier we wanted to get to 600 subscribers. That was our next goal, and we would do something fun. We had some fun stuff in the works. Well, we got there. So thank you to everyone who subscribed today. Have added 9 since the end of last week. 600 subscribers. So in the works, coming up on July 8th, that is 2 weeks from today, significantly a day the Royals have off. We will be doing, finally, after years of trying to get this in the works, we are finally going to do it. We are going to do the 580 Sports Talk Olympics. We don't know where we are going to do it live from. We had a couple ideas of places that just so happen to be under construction at the moment. So we're going to find a track. We're going to get some field agility tests done, little running, little sprinting, little jumping, lifting, all those things. Trenton suggested we do swim and dive. I don't think that's going to make the cut for this year's 580 Sports Talk Olympic Games.
We're not going to put ourselves out there shirtless. I think that's a thing that our listeners will appreciate, that we are not going to get out there with no shirts on the internet.
No,
that's not say no shoes, no shirt, no service. So
I think it would,
you're not getting the service of the life.
I think it would gravely disappoint anyone who knew us.
Yeah.
Yes. No, that's a fact. That's absolutely the truth. So that's coming up July 8th. We're going to live stream that on our YouTube channel. We're all going to be there. We'll put it out. It is going to be sweaty. It is probably going to be embarrassing. We're still going to end up doing it. That'll be July 8th live on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube channel. I'm excited. I've been trying to push for this for years. Jake was always very anti doing this, which makes me think he's a coward.
Well, he knew he would have dusted us. He would have made us look like clowns.
Probably. You mean the former Washburn Student Athlete of the Year might be a little better athlete? Some of us.
He would have finished a Gatorade after a 100-meter dash by the time you or I crossed the finish line. And it's not as though, and I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here, being mean to our old pal, but Jake was not in football shape.
No, he would tell you the same thing. He would absolutely. I grabbed lunch with Jake the other day. He would very readily tell you the same thing, I think. So that is coming up July 8th. Save the date. 580 Sports Talk Olympics. They will be live streamed on YouTube prior to that day's edition of 580 Sports Talk. Thank you all for subscribing. Got to 600. Put in a lot of work to get this channel up. And thank you all for subscribing, being a part of it. Now we get to do more fun stuff, and we really appreciate that. The Royals have made some moves today.
Quite a few.
Hopefully some moves that will spearhead a little jolt, a little burst, a little boost for this offense. So your moves. Michael Massey has been reinstated from the injured list after a brief rehab assignment. He is back from the IL. He is going to play today. Adam Frazier, to make room, has been sent to the injured list, dealing with a right thumb strain and injury from this weekend. So Adam Frazier is on the IL for the time being. Additionally, the Royals have selected the contract of infielder CJ Alexander from the AAA Omaha Storm Chasers. He is going to start today at third base for the Royals. We'll give you the lineup here in just a second. In his place, to make room for him on the big league 26-man roster, Nelson Velazquez has been optioned to AAA. They're going to send him down, try to get his bat worked on. He needs to produce at a higher level. There's no doubt about that. So Nelly is going down. CJ Alexander is coming up. Additionally, I believe this was to make room on the 40-man, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Jake Brentz has been designated for assignment.
He could no longer throw strikes.
It's been way too long since he could throw a strike.
Yeah, it was probably about time. CJ Alexander, for the unfamiliar, was acquired by the Royals in the same trade in which they acquired Drew Waters from the Atlanta farm system. That coming back, of course, in 2022. Last year, Alexander didn't hit much. Over two levels, he hit just 231 with a 773 OPS, though he did flash some power, 17 home runs in 92 games. So far through 56 games at AAA Omaha this year, he's mashing a 323 average, a 369 on base, and a 555 slugging percentage, 16 doubles, 4 triples, and 9 home runs in 220 at-bats. He is a left-handed hitter. He's a big kid. He's 6'4", 215 pounds, can play third, can play first, can play a corner outfield spot. The Royals are looking for versatility in their lineup and looking for a little bit of left-handed thump, and they are hopeful that the 27-year-old Alexander can deliver that.
I hope so. I don't know exactly what this is going to look like, but I do indeed hope that it is something positive.
I think this feels like a shakeup for the sake of shaking things up a little bit. Like, I don't know that CJ Alexander, like, he's earned it. Like, those AAA numbers are solid. Those AAA numbers are, for a 27-year-old, are showing me that he's got not a whole lot left to prove at the AAA level. Like, what he is now is who he's going to be. Is that going to be an effective big league hitter? I guess we'll see. We're going to find out starting tonight. He's in the lineup. Sending Nelson Velazquez down, the at-bats were not getting better. Like, we know that the quality of contact is really good when he makes contact. We also know he's not making a whole lot of contact.
No.
And frankly, although his batting numbers for the season look better than MJ Melendez's, if you have watched for the last 2 weeks, Melendez has been having better at-bats. Like, if it was a choice between those two, you keep Melendez, 1, because his at-bats have looked better, and 2, because he's a better defender. Like, you can play him in left field more readily than you play Velazquez.
We should give MJ some props because while the bat has been terrible, his glove is way better.
Yes.
He's gotten so much better, which you deserve the credit for saying all along you thought he could at least be serviceable because of how athletic he is.
Yeah, you bet on the athleticism, and the Royals did that. And after a rough transition year last year, it seems like he has settled in as an outfielder who he's getting much better jumps on the ball. He made some highlight reel plays over the last couple of weeks. And you just hope that eventually the production can catch up to the quality of at-bats that he's had the last couple of weeks. He's obviously had some big swings of the bat, but not enough of them, obviously, to buoy his season average. But it really kind of, I think, came down to one of these guys has a position and the other doesn't. And that's why Nelson Velazquez is being sent down and Melendez is not.
You can simplify it down to this and this alone. Nelson Velazquez has to slug better than 366 to be a major league player. He has to. It's as simple as that. You've got to get pop from him. And if you're not getting pop and power from him consistently, he's probably not a major leaguer.
Christopher on the YouTube comments points out the most notable thing about tonight's lineup for the Royals. You mentioned Michael Massey's back.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended, because that was the injury that had him on the injured list in the first place. But Massey's at DH tonight. They're easing him back in. He didn't play. I don't think he played the field at all.
I don't believe
rehab assignment. So they're easing him back. They want his bat in the lineup, and he's got the third best OPS plus on the team for the Royals. So naturally, you want that presence back in the lineup. So he's going to DH. CJ Alexander, natural third baseman. He's going to play there tonight. That shifts Michael Garcia back to second base, where we haven't seen him play a lot, and he's also back into the leadoff spot tonight. Where he had some success early in the season, but just the last couple of weeks, and he's had company in this regard, hadn't hit a lick. So Christopher points out, I think the Alexander move is partly driven by the fact that Massey won't be able to play much defense, at least not for a while. Shift Garcia to second base. Keeps you from having to play Garrett Hampson because he's the only other second baseman on your roster right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get Alexander's bat in the lineup and see if it's effective.
Yeah.
And keep Garcia in the lineup at second base, where I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be he's an excellent defender at third base. I think he'll be just as good at second.
Yeah, no reason not to think so. All of his metrics, fielding wise, have been very positive this year. You're not worried about that. If you're worried about anything with Garcia, it's hitting the ball, which he had a little flare single yesterday. That was nice. It's been pretty bad other than that for Garcia recently. And it's a frustrating bad too, because the process is still working for him in a sense. I mean, he's still hitting the ball hard. He's not chasing all that often. He does not swing and miss all that often. He doesn't strike out all that often. He also doesn't walk very much. But like, these are all good things that you want out of a guy who's going to play more often than not a corner infield spot. But at some point, it's got to pan out. At some point, you actually need to get on base. And at this point, it's him. It is everybody, for the most part, just not doing enough. And that has moved the Royals now down out of a projected playoff spot as things stand today. The current Major League Baseball playoff picture, if you're into such things, the Royals have fallen to 6th in the, what is this? Hold on. Excuse me. Yes, they are now 4th among wild card teams. The Yankees, the Guardians, and the Mariners lead their divisions. Baltimore, Minnesota, Boston right now would be your wild card teams. The Royals are 1 game back in the loss column, half a game back overall of Boston for that final wild card spot. Still 3.5 games clear of Houston and Tampa. And the Royals will play Tampa Bay coming up here in the near future at the end of this current homestand that begins tonight.
And the teams closely around them are really heating up. I mean, the Twins 7-3, Boston 8-2,
so
Houston 7-3.
And you look at bigger picture. Minnesota's won 10 of their last 14, but then you look at who they played: Pittsburgh, Colorado, Oakland, Tampa Bay. They lost that series, and Oakland again. And I know that Kansas City just lost 2 out of 3 to Oakland, but still. That's Minnesota's kind of beaten up on the dregs a little bit. Boston's won 9 of 11. They have series wins over Philadelphia and the Yankees in that stretch. They had been flirting heavily with 500. It had been a running joke that they never got more than a game away from 500 for the better part of a month.
Mm-hmm.
They could not win or lose more than 2 in a row. They were just floating right at 500. And now they've gotten hot. They've gotten up to 42-36. Houston, you mentioned, playing better ball. They're 13-7 this month. I'll put it to the floor. Which of those 3 teams, if any of them, are you buying as teams that are setting themselves up for strong second half playoff pushes? Because if we assume that the playoff teams in the American League, you're going to have your division winners, you have your 3 wild cards. If we assume that the East is getting a wild card team, because right now Baltimore is, I think they're 6.5 clear in the wild card race. So feels like Baltimore and New York are both going to make the playoffs, right? So you've got a playoff
7.5 clear,
2 playoff spots in the East. If we assume that, which of these other teams, Houston, Boston, Minnesota, if any of them, are you believing in as long haul playoff spot contenders? Which of these teams do you like?
As long haul playoff contenders from this group?
Yes. And let's throw Houston in the mix too, because they've played better ball, and we'll even throw in the defending champs, because Texas is just 10-10 this month, but they just got Max Scherzer back, which is kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
they are getting healthier. Like, they're going to get Evan Carter back eventually. That's a team that's getting healthier.
I want to say the Red Sox. Their run differential's plus 48, which is second among wild card teams.
See, I think Boston's over their heads right now. I think that. I have a lot of doubts that Rob Refsnyder is going to continue to OPS 885 as a 33-year-old journeyman who's never hit anything like this in the course of his career.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think David Hamilton is a true talent, a 770 OPS guy at short. Connor Wong is hitting 330 as a 28-year-old catcher in his first full big league season. Like, I think their offense is smoke and mirrors right now. I think they're in a hot stretch, certainly, and give them credit for that. But over the long haul, Rafael Devers and Tyler O'Neill are the only bats I really trust in that lineup. And their bullpen, too, full of guys that I've never heard of. Like one guy that the average listener has heard of. And I should say, too, because the average listener to us knows who Brad Keller is. But did you know that he was pitching out of their bullpen right now?
Nope.
5.40 ERA in 9 appearances.
Yeah, that sounds about right. The rest of the way until the All-Star break for the Red Sox. Home against the Blue Jays for 3. Home against the Padres for 3. Then they go on the road for 6 against the Marlins and Yankees. And then another 6 at Fenway against the A's and your Kansas City Royals.
They're way better on the road than they are at home. I mean, that's not way better. They're 24-16 on the road and 18-20 at home.
So
that's
a series
odd.
or two better.
Something about that is very odd.
So I'm not really buying Boston. I think they're punching above their weight offensively during this stretch. And I think that they are much more of a 500-ish to slightly below team. And I don't know what kind of they're banged up, but they're guys who are hurt are long-term out. Like they're not going to get Lucas Giolito back. They're not going to get Garrett Whitlock back. Tristan Casas is still out for the long haul. I don't think those are important guys. So I don't really see Boston sustaining a significant playoff push. They're just kind of hot. They're a 500-ish team that's hot right now. Minnesota, same thing for me. Like their lineup really right now is being buoyed by Royce Lewis doing a Barry Bonds impersonation. Like he's homering in every game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to make sure this makes sense. I'm going to pencil Baltimore in. I'm just going to put them in the playoffs.
Yes, there are 2 wild card spots available.
Right.
Is essentially what I'm saying.
Right
now they belong to Minnesota and Boston.
If you asked me to put money down right now on who I would pick as those final 2 wild cards, is it completely ridiculous to lean with Houston and Texas?
No.
Because really, it more than anything comes down to the teams ahead of them. I don't really believe in. Like Tampa is tied with Houston right now. I don't really trust the Rays. Boston, I agree with you. They've been way better than I thought they would be, but I don't know how long that's going to end up lasting. Minnesota, they are the least I have absolutely no faith in them. Like they're good, but I don't know. Nothing about them grips me. Nothing about them says like, oh yeah, contender. Like I could just as easily see them collapse as I could see them go on a late run.
I'm really iffy on their pitching staff.
Agreed.
Pablo Lopez has pitched way worse than his peripherals suggest. He was awesome yesterday against Oakland. He had 14 strikeouts, but he's pitching to an ERA over 5 this year. Other than Joe Ryan, they don't really have anybody reliable in their rotation. Their bullpen, other than Yohan Duran and Griffin Jacks, I don't think they have a really reliable bullpen. Although you will never guess who has thrown 16 1/3 innings with a 0.00 ERA out of the Minnesota bullpen.
Is he a former Royal?
He is a former Royal.
I will never guess. It's got to be someone who sucked. Jake Newberry.
No, Josh Stamont.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, 16 1/3 innings, 0 earned runs allowed for Josh Stamont. So, Minnesota and Boston feel like of a piece. They're both teams that I think are 500-ish teams that are in a good stretch right now because of who they're playing.
And I would also throw in the Royals. I'm very worried. I'm very worried about where this team is heading if they can't hit. Because the starters have been great. The starters have been awesome. And that has not really changed, save for 10 days in the last month. Otherwise, to start this month. Otherwise, they've been awesome. I worry about the hitting. So with all that in mind, those 2 teams I mentioned, Houston, they have had a lot of faces change. They also have had a core, at least part of that core, that has been together a long time, and they have won a lot in the last better part of a decade.
They have. I just think they're going to run out of arms if they haven't already.
And I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't think they have the starting pitching to sustain a real second half run. Where with Texas, the reason I agree with you on Texas, I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think you saw the talent that's still on this roster over the weekend. Eventually, they're going to get Evan Carter back. Wyatt Langford is starting to percolate. This is a guy a lot of people thought was going to win Rookie of the Year when they called him up, and now he's starting to roll.
I think I did.
Yeah, I think I did too. He's starting to roll. They just got John Gray back. They from injury. They just got Max Scherzer back. There's a chance to get DeGrom back in the second half. I think that's a real team. I think that's a team that is going to make a playoff push. And I sort of put Kansas City in the same category as I put Boston and Minnesota, where Like just right now, they're trending in the wrong direction,
Yeah.
whereas Minnesota and Boston are trending in the right direction. But again, Boston is a half a game ahead of Kansas City. If Kansas City wins one of their next 2 games, then they will get to the midway point. We're getting to the midway point of the season after Tuesday night for the Royals. They will either be on pace to win 84, 86, or 88 games. And that's kind of what we said, even when they were rolling, when we were adjusting our expectations for the Royals, we kind of said, that's about what they feel like. Like they banked enough wins where, that probably will come down. They're not going to play 103 win ball all the way like they did for a stretch, but they're probably about a mid-80s win baseball team. And that might be good enough to get you in the playoffs. And so far on pace to be on the precipice of a playoff spot with 86, 87 wins. And they're going to be on pace for that, roughly. At the midway point of the season. So that's why I say, we're writing off the Royals. Oh my God, they're done. They're cooked, Spencer. They're cooked. They're toast, Trenton. We're writing them off. We're at the midway point, guys, and they're on pace to be the team that we kind of thought they were a month ago. Like this is what they're finally playing like it, where you've had now the valley with all the peaks of this first half, but this is roughly what we kind of thought. Like they're a mid-80s win baseball team. They're going to have some company in that. Are they going to get the breaks to outlast a Minnesota or a Boston or maybe even a Houston if they can piecemeal their starting rotation together?
My more thought was this is not a team that was on pace for 96 wins. This is not a 96 win team. This is not a flash in the pan.
Nobody thought they were a 96 win team. I mean, when
for a while ago, a little bit, people were buying into the hype.
We weren't.
You're right nationally, though, Spencer. They definitely were.
Yeah, like that week and a half before, I don't know. Like there was a week and a half where the national media was buying into the hype of this team.
Yeah.
And had me really thinking, can they win 94 plus wins and be a flash in the pan team? And now they've come back to reality.
Yeah, it's similar to the offense. We talked about this on Thursday and Friday last week, Spencer, that they need to find level. They were playing way above. Now I think they are playing over the last 2 weeks way below what they can and should be this year. They've got to find what that middle ground is, because that middle ground could still be a team that finishes above 500, and I think is certainly doable. They just have to actually do it. By the way, speaking of failed former Royals who are having great years, do you know who is 4th in first base all-star voting in the American League?
Got to be Ryan O'Hearn.
It is Ryan O'Hearn. The fact that he is not just like serviceable, but has actually been arguably good is outrageous.
Yeah, that's wild. And it's not like he went to an organization where like you just assume that they're going to get the best out of guys. Like it's not like he went to St. Louis where they've been doing that for years. Although maybe the Cardinals devil magic is starting to run out a little bit. It's not like he went to Tampa Bay. It's not like he went to the Dodgers. It's not like he went to one of those organizations where you really think about their major league player development and think, oh man, they should get the best out of guys. Went to Baltimore.
Well, I think you're starting to think that about them.
You might be, yeah. Like there might be a change in that.
Rutschman,
started
Jonathan
drafting
Henderson.
well, yeah.
Well, like Rutschman and Henderson were big time prospects. O'Hearn was never that. And we had like 4 years of track record where he was a miserable offensive player, and now he's an indispensable part of that lineup against right-handed pitching. Mark in the YouTube comments asks, when are the Guardians going to get a tougher schedule? I don't know, man. They might just be awesome. Like, we keep expecting them to fall off, and I still do have long-term concerns about how hard they've worked their bullpen. They've got 6 guys who pitched in over 30 games already this year. They've played like 75 games, I think it is. I'm trying to do the math on this. They play 75 games. Emmanuel Clase's pitched in 38 of those games. Hunter Gaddis, 37 games. Scott Barlow, 36 games. Tim Herron, Cade Smith, 35 games. That's a lot of workload on the bullpen. And they've buoyed the pitching staff because the starting pitching has just kind of been outside of Tanner Bybee and the surprising Ben Lively. It's kind of been mid. So, is their bullpen going to hold up for 162? I think that's a genuine question to ask about the Guardians. And then again, maybe it doesn't matter because maybe Stephen Kwan is just Rod Carew. Like maybe he's that guy.
Could be. I have some doubts, but it certainly could be.
Maybe David Fry really is like Mike Piazza. Like maybe all of these things are true, but no, the Guardians are starting to really pull away and create some distance. And Yeah.
8.5 up now in the division.
Yeah. I think they are that good. They go to Baltimore for 3 this week before they have the 4-gamer in Kansas City. So this is a big week for Cleveland. No doubt about it. They're on the road against the wild card leaders in Baltimore, a verifiably excellent team, and then a Kansas City team that wants their lick back after they lost that game, and is needing some wins and needing to stem the tide a little bit. So that's going to be a fascinating week for Cleveland.
We'll get you ready for Royals Marlins in the 5 o'clock hour of the show today. Cole Reagan's day back at the K. Thank goodness for that. But before we get there, we've got to get to What Is Wrong With You. That's up next here on 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, it is our first What Is Wrong With You of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. 2 new stories going head-to-head today. Our winner, if you forgot, from last Friday, it was Spencer. I opened up the wrong link. That's why I couldn't find the winner from the other day. Here's Friday's show. Our winner was the guy from Florida who had committed a crime, was on the run, and hid in the ceiling of a store that he tried to burglarize. And when the cops showed up, they were tracking him electronically. They knew where he was. They said, hey, he's not in the store. Where could he be? He was hiding in the ceiling, and then his phone went off. That's a pretty easy way to give away your position.
Tough.
That's a tough one. Dan, I will have you go first today in your first What Is Wrong With You in 2.5 weeks.
It's been a long time. Glad to be back in the What Is Wrong With You saddle. We are going to a small Philadelphia suburb, Springfield, Pennsylvania. This happened a couple of weeks ago, but the story was so good I bookmarked it. I hope neither of you guys got to it, and happy to bring it to the show today. A youth baseball game came to a halt last month when parents started pointing up at the sky. It wasn't a ball or a bird that caught their eye, but rather a banner towed by an airplane calling out a parent by name. The The Springfield Little League stunt has caused a scandal in the Montgomery County town, angering community members and prompting an investigation. Parents flocked to a township board meeting to decry the flyover, which many perceive as bullying and evidence of a toxic culture among adults in the league. Meanwhile, an online petition demanding the resignation of any board member found to have been involved has gathered hundreds of signatures. So May 18th, there was a flyover at a Little League game which targeted a father who recently complained about league scheduling. Several coaches immediately began laughing and snapping photos of the airplane banner, which read, "His name is Zach Magid, Magid." I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's what the banner said. Somebody paid to fly a banner over a Little League baseball game. I just want to stop there for a second to let that sink in. And the banner read, "His name is Zach Magid." Magid is a parent who complained to league officials about a decision to end the season early for a second straight year so that more advanced players could begin competing on their summer travel teams. Magid felt that was unfair to recreational players who wouldn't get to compete in a playoff to crown a league champion. Magid tells the website Axios that league leaders reversed the decision after he contacted a district coordinator who relayed the parents' concerns to board members, and he felt like the issue was settled until the flyover. Some parents said at the township meeting they lacked confidence in a league-led investigation, suspecting someone inside the league was behind the stunt. Springfield Little League President Thomas McGeehan Sr. told parents he hasn't uncovered evidence implicating any board members, calling the flyover, quote, "a stain on our league."
Here's the thing. Zach Magid is right.
Yes.
He is just in his crusade.
100%.
Which makes this even worse.
No, if you have a league, you don't cancel the
Exactly.
playoffs or shorten the season so that you can go play in another league. No,
Yeah.
you finish the season. And if you're committed to the league, commit to the full season. Don't commit to, well, we'll do part of the season, but then, little Johnny's on a U10 select squad that's going to go play tournaments, and he's going to get scouted by the Phillies, and he's going to get a scholarship to play at North Carolina. Because he's the best player on his U9 baseball team. That's nonsense.
Yeah, the North Carolina Industrial Leagues, buddy. He's playing 16-inch softball for a living. Give me a break.
Absolute nonsense. If you commit to play for a youth sports team, and this is whatever youth sport it is, whether it's travel, whether it's rec ball, whatever it is, Little League, doesn't matter. If you commit to the team, you commit to the whole season.
Correct.
Yeah.
You commit to the season, you play it out. And the league, being cowards, decided, no, well, we'll go ahead and we'll kowtow to I'm sure the richer parents in the league,
Of course.
who have the money to put little Johnny on a U6 select coach pitch team where, they're going to play the championship game at Citizens Bank Park. Like, you're kowtowing to the wealthy parents, and you're screwing over the kids who are out there and competing in the spirit of youth sports, which is to have fun.
If you
And learn skills and be on a team and play with your friends.
If you, as a parent or as a child, put the select travel team above the Little League team, fine. More power to you. You don't get to play Little League then.
Yeah, don't play Little
don't
League.
play
It's very
Little League.
simple.
Yeah.
You do not get to have your cake and eat it too. The Missouri Tigers of Little League parents involved here. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too.
Who pay for a damn flyover to name and shame a parent who just wanted his kid, who Zach Magid is probably under no illusions about his kid's athletic ability.
No, little Zebulon, probably not going to be a superstar at the D1 level.
Just likes to play his 15 to 20 Little League games a summer and wants to, compete for a championship. That's fun. That's what Little League was like when I was a kid. And they're going to fly a banner over a Little League game to embarrass this guy, to call him out by name so that other parents can be mad at him. It's a joke. What a joke. Youth sports are so broken, man.
Yes, that is correct. That is absolutely
And
a
it's
fact.
the adults that broke it, not the kids.
My story is going to take us to Merritt Island, Florida, where a man from the town of Cocoa has found himself behind bars after he allegedly reported a fake bomb threat from a Publix bathroom. And I don't mean public, I mean the store Publix. Why did he call in the bomb threat? He had some meat to steal. 46-year-old Dallas Britt was arrested and charged with the following after the incident that unfolded at the Publix on Merritt Island Saturday evening. He was charged with a false bomb threat, misuse of 911, petty theft, and use of a two-way communication device to facilitate a felony. The sheriff's office received a 911 call from a man, later identified as Britt, who said there was a bomb in the grocery store bathroom. Quote, somebody put a bomb in the bathroom, like the garbage can. It's ticking, Britt told dispatchers. 10 law enforcement officials then made their way to the Publix to investigate. Dispatchers first suggested the caller contact the public service desk for a cleanup on aisle 9, but soon realized the caller meant a ticking time bomb, not a stinky bomb, Sheriff Wayne Ivey said. That's kind of gross. When deputies arrived, Britt was reportedly making his way out of the store with a shopping cart full of meat products. The items weren't bagged, and deputies believed they were being stolen. They asked to see Britt's receipts and said he was on his way to his car to get his wallet. Deputies allowed Britt to continue on because of the bomb threat, but then caught him later during a traffic stop. So he got away. He got off with the meat.
I can't believe we have another meat theft story.
During the traffic stop, deputies called the phone number that was used to call in the bomb threat. And you'll never believe this, but a flip phone in Britt's car started ringing. He eventually admitted to using the phone while inside the Publix and told deputies he did indeed try to steal the meat, but denied making the 911 call. Sure. Deputies reviewed surveillance footage from Publix, which shows the man allegedly stealing the cart full of meat, making a phone call at the same time the 911 call was made, and then leaving the store without paying.
I'm sure they got that man in 4K.
$375 worth of groceries stolen. This man does have 3 prior convictions for theft. He is being held on $25,000 bond.
Did they find the meat in a suitcase is my first question.
I miss that guy.
If
What a legend.
Our champion from last year, I believe.
An icon.
If they stole the meat, if this guy stole the meat, then is that going to be in the evidence lockup? Stinky meat?
It might be. They might have to hold on to it.
They got to hustle up, get it into a freezer.
Yeah, the grocery store can't take it back.
Save the steak.
Oh, my gosh. All right. 2 good stories today. We got the fake bomb threat meat heist, or we have the awful parents who flew a banner over a Little League game calling out a parent.
Yeah, that one sucks, but this is much funnier.
The T-bone bomber, as
He
Van
called it a
says.
bomb threat to steal some meat.
The T-bone bomber.
What is it with people stealing meat? Was he going to resell it?
You'd think if you were going to steal something, you'd steal non-perishables.
Hey,
You would think.
he's going to sell it. It's going to be 4 ribeyes, $39.
Yeah. $2 steaks across town.
Shout out to those guys.
That is our first winner of the week in What Is Wrong With You, as our friend Vance calls him, the T-Bone Bomber. That wins today on What Is Wrong With You. When we come back, we've got some more NFL to get to on 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. 447 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, Dan, Spencer, and Trenton, the whole crew here with you today. Plenty of NFL on the show today, including this from Pro Football Focus earlier today. They released their ranking 1 through 32 of the best receiver cores in the league. So this is not just wide receivers. This is all pass catchers. So wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs as pass catchers in the entire NFL. I want to start with just the top 10. We'll get to the Chiefs in a moment here. Number 1 is San Francisco. I'm not going to debate that.
That's fine.
Debo, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. That's a really good group. They drafted Ricky Pearsall. Yeah.
First round pick. Yeah.
Miami comes in number 2. No, disagree. Waddle and Hill are great, obviously. Odell Beckham ain't that dude anymore. He's not. Raheem Mostert's never been, he's fine. Devin Achan's fine as a receiver, but they're not McCaffrey. And they're going to start Jonnu Smith, who's not a great receiver. They're not number 2, in my opinion. I would put Philadelphia over them.
I feel like they're not even going to play a tight end.
Well, that's also true. They might not. Philly comes in 3. The Bears 4. Yeah, we'll see. Houston 5. Minnesota 6. Here's where it really goes off the rails. Detroit is 7th. Detroit's wide receiver room sucks. It's not like mid. It's bad. Amon-Ra St. Brown rules. Their tight end, Sam Laporta, was great this past year. Jahmyr Gibbs is a fine player. Jameson Williams has not done jack nor you-know-what in his career. They're going to start Khalif Raymond for a second straight year at wide receiver. On the boundary. He's like wide receiver 2 for their team. Khalif Raymond. Come on, give me a break.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it sucks, but 7 seems a little high. I mean, they definitely have a top-end guy in St. Brown. They have a top-end tight end.
Donovan Peoples-Jones is second on their depth chart. Second string on their depth chart, excuse me.
Jameson Williams is a lot more, potential than production, even still at this stage of his career. And that's got to change. Like,
if the NFL was a 7-on-7 league, he'd be awesome. Unfortunately, it's not.
I don't know how much that torn ACL he suffered in the college football playoff, the championship game, has affected him as a pro. But I would have, pun absolutely intended here, I would have bet on him being pretty good.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I would have too, coming out of college. The Rams are
Alabama receivers, like,
so hot and cold.
It's either like great production, like it's either Julio or Amari Cooper or Devontae Smith, or it's like Jerry Jeudy.
What a bust. That was a whiff. Although at least I was not alone in that one. I thought he was going to be a star.
You and me both. Man, I was dead convinced he was going to be awesome, but he's just...
I had totally bought into he's already a pro as a route runner when he was at Alabama. I was all in on that take. Woof. That was tough. The remainder of your top 10, the Rams 8, the Bengals 9, the Seahawks 10.
I feel like they're a little underrated here, honestly.
I put them ahead of the Lions.
Even if you say that Tyler Lockett's starting to decline as a player, I still think he's a pretty solid wide receiver 2/3, and him.
Yes,
if he's your 3 because Jackson Smith and Jigba replaces him in the pecking order, you still have an elite 1. I think DK Metcalf is an elite number 1 wide receiver. And I'm not as down on their tight ends. Like,
who is going to start a tight end? I actually don't know off the top of my head.
Noah Fant.
Oh,
he's fine.
You could do worse.
Noah Fant is fine.
Yeah, that's all right. Where would you guess the Chiefs fall?
All right, I haven't looked, so this will be an authentic guess. This won't be, guess.
You can guess because I already looked.
Okay, I will guess that the Chiefs rank 16th.
They do rank 16th.
Oh,
right
wow.
Smack dab in the middle.
I feel like you look.
I did. You look at my screen right now. I didn't scroll beyond the Seahawks at 10.
Check the history. Control H over here. No, they do fall 16th. The write-up here from PFF, even with Travis Kelce, the Chiefs finished with just an 18th ranked team receiving grade last season. They have gone out and upgraded with Hollywood Brown, McCole Hardman, and Xavier Worthy. They already had McCole Hardman, and that's not an upgrade over anybody. I feel like I'm going insane.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Hey, listen. Certified ball knower Taylor Swift was very excited about getting McCole Hardman back for another year.
Never been more proof she has absolutely no clue about ball. Cheering on re-signing McCole Hardman.
I think she cheered on the fact that she has met his girlfriend or wife, and I think that's all it was.
And you know what? That's fine. That's it. Like, that's the only pop culture that I got the last 2.5 weeks on paternity leave. It was that and Hawk Tua. That's it. Those are the only references I got.
I did not know all day Friday what that was.
I had to break the news.
And Spencer asked, "Have you seen this video?" And I watched it, and I
like, is Pat McAfee's right-hand man interviewing the Dolphins quarterback? What's going on?
I could not tell you how many tweets I saw that were just AJ Hawk next to Tua Tagovailoa as that was going viral.
I'm glad I didn't do one then, because that was my first thought.
They also add, if Rashee Rice can build on what he did last season, this should be a better unit. Now, that part I do agree with. I think I'd go a little bit higher. I mean, I wouldn't put them top 10, but I think I'd lean a little bit higher than 16 with that group.
Yeah, I think it's a little more multidimensional. Just looking right up the list, number 15 is Dallas, and Dallas has CeeDee Lamb, and he's great. What else you got, man? Like Jalen Tolbert, old-ass Brandon Cooks? Like, I think I like Kansas City's receivers better than I like Dallas's receivers. Green Bay's got tremendous ceiling, but, like, actual production, like, still maybe lagging behind some of the proven production that you get from Kansas City.
And the guy who most people consider Green Bay's number one played like 6 games last year. So no, I think that group is really good, but I can understand that totally.
And Tennessee, I know they signed Tyler Boyd, but still, there are a lot of Treylon Burks. And I was very pro Chigakonkwo going into last year, and he did squat. Like, so don't love what they've got at tight end.
Yeah, I drafted him in fantasy last year. Didn't go well. Not a great pick.
So, yeah, like I think that Kansas City at 16, top half of the league, like at the bottom of the top half of the league. If you'd asked me without even looking at the list at all, obviously I guessed right, but like, yeah, top half of the league feels about right. Certainly not top 10. 11 through 16, yeah, that feels about right for the Chiefs. And I do think that they got better than they were last year, where like at the end of last year, if you would have ranked the 2023 receiver core, the Chiefs would have been bottom 5. And that's even with a Hall of Famer at tight end.
No, I would agree with that, because there's also not, and Jet was a pretty good pass catcher out of the backfield, a screen guy. They don't really have a pass catching running back right now. Like Pacheco is not.
No,
they don't think of him as a receiver very often.
And that's weird, because you think about Andy Reid and you think about the screen game. You think about what
I think about Brian Westbrook.
Yes,
to this day I think about Brian Westbrook.
I do too. I compare every running back in a Andy Reid offense to Brian Westbrook. I will always do that.
There's a great tweet from many years ago that says something to the effect of, role playing as the guy who has only seen one movie, and it's The Boss Baby, and him seeing a second movie and saying, "This gives me real Boss Baby vibes." Yeah. That's me with Brian Westbrook in an Andy Reid offense. Like, he really gives me Brian Westbrook vibes every single running back.
I'm still like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is coasting on Brian Westbrook vibes.
No, that's a fact. That is a damn sure fact. A couple of comments here. One from Matt on YouTube says, Hardman's good for 1 or 2 boneheaded plays per game. Yeah, I mean, look, he's wide receiver 6. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm more mad that he said they went out and upgraded. He was already on the team.
Yeah. That's what I was.
That's a re-signing. Also from our guy Lenny Dawson on YouTube says, the lists mean nothing. They're proven wrong time and time again. They're not one on paper. I don't disagree with that at all. And this PFF's ranking does not mean anything for the Chiefs, but it is interesting that there is a national perception that they are in the middle of the pack. That's all I'm saying here. And I think they are being a little bit underrated going into this season after being really damn bad this past season. 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk coming up after the news, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. the final hour of 580 Sports Talk on a Monday afternoon. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis with you in studio today. Our summer intern, Trenton Craxner, on the other side of the glass, keeping us on the air today. Thanks for spending some of your afternoon hours with us, whether you're listening on your radio, listening online, or checking out our YouTube stream. In fact, you can find the video stream on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk, the name of the channel, on our website, 580wibw.com, over on Twitter at 580 Sports Talk, and also on the WIBW News Facebook page. We'll get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines here in just a few moments. We will also get to a quote from Josh Whitman, who's the athletic director at Illinois, about a realignment topic we've only brought up as a hypothetical before, but something that is clearly concerning to some programs in the real power two of college sports. And we'll get you ready for Royals versus Marlins game 1 tonight. Cole Reagan's on the mound for the boys in blue. We'll preview that game later on this hour. Also taking your texts to the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. And we are also taking your comments on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. As always, we're coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Plenty of headlines to get to today. Let's just dive right on in, and let's get to a story involving an athlete from right here in the capital city. At the Women's Under-21 Continental Volleyball Championship, that's an international volleyball event, there will be a Washburn Rural graduate playing for Team USA, the SEC Freshman of the Year in women's volleyball, the former Shawnee County Female Athlete of the Year, Brooklyn DeLay. She is going to play for, again, Team USA at the U21 Continental Volleyball Championship. As I mentioned, SEC Freshman of the Year. She was in American Volleyball Coaches Association All-America Honorable Mention as a freshman. Let's not forget that. She's one of 12 players who made the national roster. The event is going to take place in Toronto coming up later on this year. That is absolutely awesome for Brooklyn DeLay. She is an absolute superstar on the volleyball court. The schedule begins, by the way, for Team USA. They play Wednesday against Suriname, and then they will play Puerto Rico on Thursday. If they advance, they will continue to play on Friday of this week. That's incredible for Brooklyn DeLay. What a year for former Shawnee County Athlete of the Year winners.
Yeah, no doubt.
With Nyjah Kennedy, your National College Softball Player of the Year. Brooklyn DeLay, your SEC Freshman of the Year in volleyball. Just absolutely fantastic. And what a cool opportunity for Brooklyn.
Very, very cool. Congratulations to her. No doubt about it.
How were they both so good, Power 4 quality basketball players, and were both, talking about Brooklyn DeLay and Nyjah Kennedy, better at other sports?
Right?
How is that possible? I mean, we talk about Nyjah all the time. She's been in so many national headlines recently. You know, she could have played basketball wherever she wanted. Brooklyn also could have.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal on the court.
Terrific basketball player.
Unbelievable.
Star, yeah, just remarkable. Greatness is greatness, man.
Fact.
Great athletes are great athletes. First headline for me. Second update of the Major League Baseball All-Star balloting, and 2 members of the Kansas City Royals are on track to advance to the Phase 2 voting on Sunday. So here's how the All-Star balloting works, if you're not familiar. There is a Phase 1, which is in progress, and you can still cast your ballots at MLB.com. At the conclusion of Phase 1, the leading vote getters in each league are automatically starters. So right now, Aaron Judge of the Yankees and Bryce Harper of the Phillies are the leading vote getters in their respective leagues. Judge would start in the outfield for the American League. Harper would start at first base for the National League if they remain the 2 leading vote getters. Beyond those 2 players, the top 2 vote getters at every position and the top 6 outfielders, or 4 if an outfielder is a top vote getter, will advance to Phase 2 of the voting, which begins Sunday. Got that good. Pencils down. Anyway, there are 2 Royals who are in the top 2 at their respective positions and then would advance to Phase 2 and have an opportunity to perhaps start the All-Star game in the fan vote. They are, as you might guess, Bobby Witt Jr., who is right now second in the American League shortstop balloting behind Baltimore's Gunnar Henderson, and Salvador Perez, who is second behind Baltimore's Adley Rutschman in the catcher balloting. So those two Royals have a chance to still start the All-Star game. Cast your ballots if you'd like. The other positional leaders, I'll give you the top two at each position. We'll go around the diamond real quick. The American League, first base, Baltimore's Ryan Mountcastle and Toronto's Vladimir Guerrero Jr., freezing out the objectively correct choice, which is Cleveland's Josh Naylor. Second base, Houston's Jose Altuve and Texas's Marcus Semien. I'd go with Altuve there. Third base, Jose Ramirez of the Guardians, Jordan Westberg of the Orioles. Ramirez is the correct choice. Shortstop mentioned Henderson and Witt Jr. In the outfield, if Aaron Judge does receive the most votes of any American League player, the final four would be his Yankee teammate Juan Soto, Houston's Kyle Tucker, Cleveland's Stephen Kwan, and Baltimore's Anthony Santander. Catcher, we mentioned Rutschman and Perez. DH, Houston's Jordan Alvarez and New York's Giancarlo Stanton. Over in the National League, first base, Bryce Harper, Freddie Freeman are the top two vote getters there. Second base, it's a tight one between Arizona's Ketel Marte and San Diego's Luis Arraez. At third base, Philadelphia's Alec Boehm, former Wichita State Shocker, and San Diego's Manny Machado are the top two vote getters there. At National League shortstop, Mookie Betts and Trey Turner. In the outfield, top six in the National League, San Diego's Jurickson Profar, Milwaukee's Christian Yelich, Los Angeles' Teoscar Hernandez, San Diego's Fernando Tatis, and two Phillies, Brandon Marsh and Nick Castellanos. Behind the plate, Milwaukee's William Contreras and Philadelphia's JT Realmuto. Designated hitter, Shohei Ohtani of the Dodgers, Marcell Ozuna of the Braves.
Two quick notes. One, would you have believed it if I told you that the biggest discrepancy from first to second place of any position for either league is NL third base? Alec Boehm is up by 1.4 million votes over Manny Machado.
Some of that is the fact that Boehm's having a legitimately good year for a popular team. The other part is all of the other good National League third basemen have been buns. Like Manny Machado's not having a good year.
No.
Nolan Arenado's not having a good year. Austin Riley until last week was not having a good year. Max Muncy's been hurt. Like those are the guys who've been in all-star consideration in the National League for years and years. And none of them are having good seasons.
No.
So that's where that comes from.
Also,
go vote for Ryan McMahon of the Rockies. Give me something to be happy about.
The other note here, Josh Naylor's not going to win because he looks like Wario. People don't like Wario, and he looks like Wario.
He does look like Wario.
Yeah, he does. Like he's going to go play Mario in tennis.
He's having an awesome year.
And he's going to, fart a lot, and he's going to ride a motorcycle. Like that's what people think of when they see Josh Naylor.
He's no longer stabbing his own teammates, though. So we've progressed beyond that.
I don't know. Maybe that gave him an edge.
Yeah.
It could
I mean, literally, I guess.
Anyway.
All right. First headline for me, the Chiefs have finally released defensive lineman Isaiah Buggs, who was arrested multiple times in Alabama this offseason. He was booked on domestic violence burglary charge in Tuscaloosa on June 16th. That came after he was charged May 30th with 2 misdemeanor counts of second-degree animal cruelty in Tuscaloosa. 2 dogs allegedly under his care, a pit bull and a Rottweiler mix, were found to be neglected and severely malnourished. The pit bull had to be euthanized. Buggs' bail on the animal cruelty charges were revoked after his domestic violence arrest. He's currently still in Tuscaloosa jail after being booked last Monday. His agent, Trey Robinson, has alleged his client is a victim of an ongoing subversive campaign to force the closure of a hookah lounge he owns in Tuscaloosa, but he is no longer a member of the Chiefs. This should have happened like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
This should have happened after the first
May
arrest.
30th. This should have happened May 30th.
Chiefs tweeted about it earlier today. Isaiah Buggs did not get a thank you, Isaiah graphic with a picture of him holding the trophy.
Did he just get the football or the helmet picture?
No, not even that. They were one line. We have released defensive tackle Isaiah Buggs.
Wow, not any graphic at all.
No graphic. Not like the empty helmets. Not like the football sitting on the 50-yard line.
You just know when you see the helmet on the turf picture, something happened. Something very bad.
Yeah.
It just happened to your favorite
We have
team.
released DT Isaiah Buggs, period.
Every
They put a
time
period after that.
in the last couple of weeks, and Spencer, you know this because you've been here. Every time I've asked Matt Verderame, Matt Derrick, anyone we've talked about the NFL with, I have said, why is Isaiah Buggs still on this team? And the response is, well, it's June, and there's not a whole lot going on. There's really no rush to do anything. And I say, I understand that, but wouldn't you rather get the good PR when your offseason's been filled with bad PR? And the answer every time has been, well, yes. just get it done with and get this guy out of here. Next headline for me today, some folks talking about this in our YouTube comments, and this is fairly scary stuff. In fact, very scary stuff from over the weekend. involving a pro athlete who has been a pretty big deal in our city over many, many years. NHRA legend John Force was thankfully alert and talking to safety workers following a fiery 300-mile-an-hour crash Sunday at the Virginia Nationals in Virginia Motorsports Park. Again, that is NHRA drag racing. John Force Racing said the 75-year-old Force was examined at the track by the NHRA medical team that was then transported by helicopter to a medical facility for further evaluations. The engine exploded on Force's car at the finish line during the first round of funny car eliminations. The vehicle then went across the center line, struck a concrete guard wall, and careened back to the right. Have you seen this video?
Yeah,
It's traumatizing.
horrifying. Yeah.
Very scary. Just 3 weeks ago, Force raced to his 157th NHRA victory and second of this 2024 season. He was also seriously injured back in 2007 at age 58 and has still been competing for the last 17 years. Tony Stewart, who races now in NHRA Top Fuel. Were you aware of that?
No.
Neither was I. Said, quote, "We're keeping our pal John Force in our thought and prayers. He's one tough cookie." Wow, that is such a Tony Stewart quote. On Sunday, long after Force's incident, teammate Austin Prock won the funny car division, topping Bob Tasca III in the final round. Prock said from the winner's circle, quote, "This trophy is going straight to the hospital to John Force." I mentioned local. John Force is a big deal, and it sucks that that NHRA is not coming back to Topeka.
I miss the Heartland Nationals.
Hey, you've been, right?
Yes, I've been. Yes.
Yeah. I went with our buddy Larry Latimer this past summer because he was a big fan, and he asked if I'd ever been, and I said no, and he was kind enough to take me out there. It's incredible, and you really do not know what it is like and really can't prepare for it until that first time you see the green light and you hear that engine kick. Holy cow. It shakes your bones. It's unbelievable. And very scary for John Force, who, talking to our pal Rick Peterson, loved coming to Topeka. People always treated him well, loved that they were the thing. And you came to Topeka, and people came out in droves to watch, and it was the big deal in the city and in the area whenever the NHRA came to town. So best wishes to John Force that he's okay. That's a very traumatic experience at 75 years old.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, veteran of auto racing of any kind means you've probably gotten in some wrecks.
Yes.
And walked away. And certainly John Force has been in his share and walked away from his share. But yeah, the older you get, the less inclined I would think you would be to want to risk going through another one.
Yeah.
But
no doubt.
Hey, if you love the sport, you love the sport. Next headline for me. Did anyone watch the Travelers Championship yesterday afternoon?
I saw it on Twitter.
Little PGA Tour action. A signature event on the PGA Tour, which means
the fifth major.
Yes. According to Stanford Steve.
Yes.
On Sports Center with SVP calls it the fifth major.
That was my exposure. I watched Sports Center last night.
The old Greater Hartford Open, TPC River Highlands in Cromwell, Connecticut, near Hartford. 6 climate protesters disrupted the action on the 72nd green as action was winding down.
Scotty Scheffler saw his life flash before his eyes.
He's like, police after me again?
Yeah.
What? What have I done this time? Whose pants will I damage beyond repair? It was the final threesome of the day. They had moved up the action and gone to threesomes because of weather threat in the area. So they wanted to get the golf tournament done. So typically you'd have a twosome, but you had a threesome finishing the round. It was the final group of the day. Scotty Scheffler, Tom Kim, and Akshay Bhatia. Scheffler led Kim by a stroke. Kim had just flushed a wedge to within 10 feet and was going to have a birdie putt to potentially send the tournament to a playoff as Scheffler couldn't putt in successfully off the fringe. And then the 6 protesters who represented a group known as Extinction Rebellion, an activist group with a history of disrupting events from around the world, sprinted out onto the green and lit flares, like little smoke bombs, colored smoke bombs.
How did they get those in?
Jim Nantz called the action like he was describing the Kennedy assassination live. Like I cannot convey to you the gravity in Jim Nantz's voice as these 6 people rushed the green and interrupted the proceedings. Now, look, I understand the reaction being to these people. Hey, even if you agree with their point, there's a time and a place. But we aren't talking about their protest or mentioning them if they had just held up some signs outside the event, right?
That's what protesting is supposed to do, right?
Exactly. In a statement mailed to the Associated Press, the group blamed climate change for Saturday's electrical storm that injured 2 people at a home near the golf course. This was, of course, due to increasingly unpredictable and extreme weather conditions. The statement read, golf, more than other events, is heavily reliant on good weather. Golf fans should therefore understand better than most the need for strong, immediate climate action. They were all wearing shirts that said no golf on a dead planet, which, I have to concede their point. They are, in fact, correct about that. And I don't want to live in a world where there's no golf. I like to play. I like to watch. So, yes, there was a protest. There were smoke bomb residue on the green. Kim made his putt, forced the playoff. They had to recut the hole to make sure there was no damage on the green that would have come into play on the hole, because they went back to play the 18th again in the playoff. And they had to recut the cup.
Wow.
As they were sending the players back to the 18th tee. Scheffler, by the way, won the event. This should be no surprise. Ever since he switched to a mallet putter, he has won every PGA Tour signature event he has entered. He won at Bay Hill. He won the Players. He won the RBC Heritage. He won the Memorial. He won the Travelers. The only reason he didn't win the Wells Fargo is because his wife was giving birth and he didn't play. He is one of the most dominant athletes on the planet right now. There is no arguing it. Scottie Scheffler is that guy.
What Tiger year is the comparison?
I think it's 2000 when he
was
won
world number 1, right?
Well, he was world number 1 a lot of years.
Well,
No, I think it's probably 2000. What year was the Tiger Slam? I think it's that year. 2000 was when he won the 3 majors and he wrapped around. He won the 01 Masters and called it the Tiger Slam. I think the 2000 U.S. Open was the one that he won by 15 strokes. Something preposterous like that. The one at Pebble. No, that was the one at. Nope, that's the PGA that he won in 2000. That was at Valhalla. The 2000 U.S. Open was at Pebble, and Tiger shot 12 under par, and second place was 3 over for the weekend.
That's insane.
So yes, that we are seeing a level of golf dominance not really seen since 2000 Tiger Woods.
So a generation,
if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, a generation of golf.
And as a dad, I am extremely into that kind of thing.
Spencer, do you have another headline for us?
Yeah, I got one more headline. The Big East is on the cusp of formally signing a new set of 6-year media rights contracts as soon as this week with Fox, NBC, and TNT that will begin it with the 2025-2026 school year, taking it through the 2030-2031 school year. Sources have told the Sports Business Journal financial terms are still being finalized at this time, but sources noted the conference will see significant rights fees uptick. Fox and CBS have one more year remaining on their 12-year, $500 million contract with the Big East. Basically, Big East basketball coming to TNT and NBC, but Fox will remain the A network as it always is with the Big East basketball, but it will come off of CBS.
It's going to be very strange to see Ernie Johnson on Thursday nights hosting Inside the Big East.
Yeah.
That's what I take away from this, is that's going to be very strange. With Chuck retiring too. I'll ask you, since you haven't been around the last couple of weeks, do you think Chuck's actually retiring?
No, I think he's in his feelings.
I think he is too.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get a substantial amount of money from somebody to continue doing what he's doing, and he's going to take it.
It's got to be Amazon, right? That's the only place he could work where they would allow him to be him.
Yeah, probably.
Like NBC's going to, hey, Chuck, can you not talk about big old San Antonio women on network TV?
Yeah, somebody's going to write him and Shaq a big check, and Shaq will take it because, as Twitter user Trill Withers once said, Shaq would do a commercial for genocide if the check was on time.
No, that's a fact, though. He'll advertise. He's still doing ads for the General out there.
Yes.
Do you think Shaq would want to be on TV still? Like, I never really got the vibe that he loved being on TV. I think it is just the money. But, maybe that's the point.
The money and like hanging out with the fellas. Like,
yeah.
I think there's an element of hanging with the guys that, one, has made inside the NBA as enjoyable as it's been over the years, but two, that sustains it year after year. Those guys keep coming back because they like working with each other.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would be the same if you removed any of the elements. Like, you put any other host in the chair that's not Ernie Johnson, it just goes completely off the rails, because I don't think Shaq knows who plays for half the teams in the NBA.
He absolutely does not.
Like, I think he's finding out on a nightly basis, like they do a Hawks highlight. He's like, are they still in the league?
No, that's 100% true, without question. That is what Ernie Johnson's going to have to do, because he said he's not leaving Turner.
Yeah.
He said, I've worked here my whole life. My dad worked here. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to have to put him on Big East and more baseball.
They should renegotiate the baseball contract and get Sunday Night Baseball on TNT, because Sunday Night Baseball sucks.
Brother,
Hey.
I could spend the next 4 days talking about how much that broadcast
I would
sucks.
love Ernie Johnson Sunday Night Baseball. That would be amazing.
I'd love anyone doing
That
it.
isn't the ESPN crew.
Oh
Yeah,
my
they're-
God, they are
Hell, they could
abominable.
put Joe Buck on it.
They're really, really
Well, they
bad.
should, because Joe Buck is the best. I would commit crimes to get Joe Buck doing baseball games again, but he doesn't want to, so more power to him. All right, Dan, since you're back, would you like to take us into our penultimate playoff roundup?
I would love to, please.
It's time for the 580 Sports Talk Playoff Roundup.
Oh, I timed that perfectly
For
in
the
video.
First time since before COVID, we have a Game 7 to decide a champion tonight.
Since Spencer's Nats.
Yeah.
A Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final in Sunrise, Florida tonight, as the Florida Panthers try to avoid being the first team in any of the major sports to trick off a 3-0 series lead in a championship series against the Edmonton Oilers, who have won the last 3 games after losing the first 3 in this series. I can't imagine anything worse than being a Panthers fan right now. You have to just be dreading today.
You know what was really stupid of the Florida Panthers?
Losing the last 3 games?
Well, that too. They got a Canadian to sing the national anthem tonight. Alanis Morissette is singing the national anthem. She is Canadian. You are playing a team from Canada. Why would you do that?
That's a good point.
Very dumb.
I don't know why you would do such a thing. I think the Oilers.
Isn't it ironic?
Don't you think? Well done.
Thank you.
I got the Panthers tonight. All right, the Oilers rather.
Yeah, I do
I
too.
got
How do
the
you not?
Oilers.
Just riding high. The Panthers are squeezing the sticks. I think the Oilers find a way to get it done.
Best players on the Oilers.
Yeah, in a winner take all scenario, you can do worse than backing the team with the best player. And I think that building's going to be tight. Like usually, you got home field or home ice or home court, whatever you want to call it, is such a big deal in a Game 7. But I think this time around, you've got a home crowd just going to be tight.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be a lot of Oilers fans there.
And don't let them score first. I'll tell you what, don't let Edmonton score the first goal. That could get real scary hours at Amarant Bank Arena, I believe is what it's called.
Yes.
Yes, the bank, as it's known.
Rolls off the tongue.
Perhaps the vault. I'm not entirely sure.
We'll just say Sunrise.
It's Sunrise, Florida. Yes, I love that the Stanley Cup Championship is being decided tonight in Sunrise, Florida. Very, very funny. This is what Gary Bettman. This is the America that Gary Bettman wants.
Were you aware of something known as the Google Maps incident in Sunrise, Florida?
I was not.
In September of 2010, Sunrise was lost by Google Maps. Individuals attempting to get driving directions were redirected to Sarasota, Florida, several hours away. This was not the first. This was not the second. This was the third time that had happened in the history of Sunrise, Florida.
That's hilarious.
And they have a pro hockey team there.
Yes, they do. They have a legitimate arena.
Yeah, I'm on the Oilers.
Yeah, I think it will be the Oil tonight.
Yep.
There are other playoffs happening. There is a deciding Game 3 in the College World Series Championship tonight. As Tennessee and Texas A&M will play a winner-take-all game to decide the national baseball champion. The pride of Hayes America, Dylan Dreiling, with the go-ahead 2-run jack for the Volunteers yesterday in Game 2 as they staved off elimination with a 4-1 victory. I have no idea who's going to win tonight. Baseball, unpredictable as it is, and I don't know enough about the pitching staffs of either of these teams, but Tennessee was the number 1 seed for a reason. I say they break the curse of the number 1 seed. I think the last number 1 national seed to win it all was more than 20 years ago.
Wow. A long
It's been
time.
a very long time, but I think the curse ends tonight. I think Tennessee wins.
I will also say Tennessee wins. I know nothing about them, to be completely honest with
Last
you.
time,
But I know Dylan Dreiling.
more than 20 years, 25. Last number 1 seed to win the College World Series, Miami in 1999. So I'll take Tennessee. We'll ride with the Kansas kid on their roster and go with Tennessee. Also, I don't know if this is really a playoff, but it'd be a great bit if we just kept doing the playoff roundup and finding things that were playoff adjacent. Like, yeah, the India Cricket League is having their semifinals tonight, and
Hey, this means we'll talk CFL later this fall, so I can live with that.
I think we just bring we have the open now, the slickly produced open. Like I just think we bring it back just at random for playoff adjacent things.
Well, do you remember what we did in place of the playoff roundup last summer?
I do not.
We did A's Watch.
Oh yeah, A Watch, because they were trending toward being the worst team. We could do Sox Watch.
We could do Sox Watch.
We could do White Sox.
That's even
Watch.
funnier because they're in the division.
Yeah.
But the other playoff adjacent thing that's happening, Copa America is underway, and Team USA.
There is so much soccer.
There is. It's a lot of soccer going on right now. You got the Euros, and you've got Copa America. In Arlington last night, the USA defeated Bolivia 2-0 behind goals from Christian Pulisic and Falarin Balogun. So USA national team 1-0 in Group B. Actually, I think they're in Group B. I actually don't know, but they won.
I should have mentioned this while we were still on hockey, but tonight could be the first time in 16 years the Stanley Cup and the Calder Cup are given out on the same night.
Oh, the AHL championship.
The Hershey Bears are up 4-2, or no, 3-2, excuse me, in Game 6, and they could win tonight.
Huh? Who are they playing?
The Coachella
Firebirds, yeah.
Which is the same matchup from last year in which Hershey won.
I did not know the AHL was still going on. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
But that is fascinating. 16 years. Wow. That does it for the playoff roundup. That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back, Sports Talk radio hosts and fans aren't the only ones who are worried about the future of realignment in college sports. We'll tell you what we mean next on 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. 5:36 here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, Dan, Spencer, Trenton all here with you today. We've got some 580 Sports Talk overtime coming up top of the 6 o'clock hour. Trenton will take you home into Royals baseball coming up tonight. The future of college sports. I don't know that I would use the word bleak. Concerning, for sure. I think there is no doubt about that. And it's not just for fans. It's not just for people like us. Josh Whitman is the athletic director at the University of Illinois. And he had a press conference this weekend talking about all sorts of stuff going on with U of I. Travis Goff has done a bunch of media stuff for KU recently. I'm sure Gene Taylor going to or has done a bunch of stuff with K-State folks recently. Well, Josh Whitman at Illinois was asked about the concern that Illinois, maybe one day, despite being in the Big Ten since the very beginning, well, what if you guys do you ever think about what if you got left out of a Super League? What if the Big Ten and the SEC really did go all in on the Super League theory and ended up merging into NFL light? Like, are you at all worried that you might not be included? And Josh Whitman said, quote, yes, without a doubt. I think we talk about that extensively here. That's really not good. Like, it's good for Josh Whitman in his current job as the athletic director at the University of Illinois to be prepared for that. Just like you would hope Travis Goff or Gene Taylor or whoever else is prepared for things. I almost said Darren Boatwright, but he got fired. I don't know who the AD at Wichita State is anymore.
Great question.
That name has been lost on me. Darren Boatwright was a very easy name to remember.
Kevin Saul.
Sure. He's got to be prepared for that. What if the American collapses and who knows what? Everyone's got to be prepared for those things. So that's good for him to say, hey, we're thinking ahead. We're trying to be on the cutting edge. We're investing a lot. Great. But if you're talking big picture college sports, the AD of a program that is a founding or at least very, very, very early, like in the 1800s, member of the Big Ten saying, yes, we think extensively in our building that a day will come when our own league mates we've been together with for over 100 years say, yeah, sorry, you're not good enough anymore. Bye, and kick us out. That is something we think about extensively and talk about extensively. How can you spin that into a good thing? I don't think you can. Like, that to me is a legitimately bad place to be for college athletics.
Are we talking about college athletics or are we talking about college football here? Like, because I wish it was just football. I don't think it will be. Because when I think about like major college basketball, you would think that there would be an understanding among the big school ADs that a large part of what makes the NCAA men's basketball tournament such a spectacle and as such worth so much to them financially is not that it's a closed system. It's that anybody can get in it, that there is the chance for Cinderella, that all 365 schools, however many it is, have that opportunity to make that tournament and win a national championship. Like, that's what's valuable about March Madness. It's not the 8th best team in the SEC getting into it every year that makes it valuable. It's not even the 10th best team in the Big 12 getting into it that makes it valuable. It's the open system that tournament is. And I don't think that a super league of men's college basketball makes the kind of sense, both figuratively and literally, that a football super league would. Yeah. I absolutely think we are going to be in a spot in a decade where college football looks like there is a closed system to college football. There is a closed super league system. And then there's everyone else. And everyone else has to schedule geographically and compete for a different kind of championship. And it might make more sense over the long haul for everybody involved.
I think it does.
That like schools like Wake Forest or Mississippi State or even like a SMU are not trying to accomplish the same goal in football as the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Oklahomas, the Texases,
no,
the USCs.
I agree.
The Ohio States. Like, I think that might even be better for college football in end stage capitalism. But for other sports, that's where I wonder about like the big school, the schools that we consider the big schools now, the power conference schools. I think that's where you've got to really fight to make sure you don't get left behind and really fight to make sure that there's a broad understanding that maybe this works for football, but for every other sport we've got, conferences still make sense. The way we've been doing things for 100 years plus still makes more sense than closing ranks around 25 to 30 revenue generating schools.
Like if you're Rutgers, if that day comes, it's over, right?
Yeah.
Like not for your school, not for football in and of itself, but you are not going to be in that group, right? You might be in the Big Ten right now. You ain't making it through there. Even if you gave Purdue ain't isn't going to be in that group. They've been in the Big Ten for forever. They've been in the Big Ten since 1896.
Jeez.
Teams that have been around in the Big Ten since the 1800s, okay? Wisconsin, Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan the first time, and Indiana. How many of those teams actually make it if they split into big NFL light? How many of those teams actually would make it?
Not Indiana.
Not Indiana.
Let's start there.
Not Illinois. I missed Iowa as well. Probably not Iowa. Not Minnesota.
Definitely
not Purdue.
Minnesota.
Not Northwestern.
Absolutely.
Academics matter less now than they ever have before. And it'd be cool if it wasn't that way. It doesn't matter at all to college athletics anymore. Not one bit. Northwestern ain't making it. Maybe Wisconsin. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, that's not a sure thing. Maybe. Like that's what we're talking about here.
This is an interesting question from the Top City Mail Supply text line. Texter from 785. If Illinois is concerned about inclusion in Power 2, that would indicate something less than 40 teams included. Is that financially viable? As a K-State fan, I would never watch the so-called Power 2 if the Big 12 got cut out. Will enough TV sets remain to make the Power 2 viable? The answer to that question, I think, is yes.
I think so, too.
Because, like, you look at the television ratings for games involving Michigan, Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida State, USC, Oregon. Like, they do numbers. Like, people will watch those games. But I do think that, I'm trying to think of how I want to put this. Like, financially viable, yes. I think the question is, how does everyone else who gets left behind make college football financially viable? And could it, in the end, be a better product for fans of schools like Purdue or fans of schools like Kansas or Kansas State, where, okay, we're not on the same, like, it is fair to say that Kansas State is not like recruiting the same kinds of players necessarily that Alabama is, generally speaking. Like, Lincoln Cure is an exception to this rule, but he's from the state of Kansas. He's from Goodland, Kansas. Avery Johnson's from Mays, Kansas. Like, there will always be those in-state schools, but like the number one recruit in the country who is inevitably from California or Texas or Louisiana or Florida, Tennessee, like, those guys are not considering Kansas State, generally speaking. And Kansas State have not made the playoff. Like, we know we could index the schools that have made the playoff. Those are the schools that are competing for what we now know to be like the national championship. If there was a sub-level of major college football that competed for its own national championship, that more schools had a chance to win, because realistically, even in a 12-team playoff, how many schools realistically can go win a college football national championship? That list is not that long. That list is no longer than a dozen schools. So if you're in a scenario where you've got a chance to go win the big prize, even if it's not the big prize anymore, maybe you're more bought in as a fan of Wake Forest, as a fan of Mississippi, as a fan of Washington State, as a fan of Kansas State. Maybe you're more bought into the idea that we can go win the biggest prize we can possibly win. Maybe that's better.
I think it is. That is what I'm in favor of. Just rip the Band-Aid off at this point, man. And you know what? You know what that probably means? Border war. I'll tell you what.
Bring back sensible scheduling.
They ain't putting Missouri in that league.
No.
No way. But I would rather see KU and K-State play the local teams again. I'd rather see a Pacific Northwest league that just plays teams regionally. And if you want to have NFL Junior, go do it. Go just be a worse NFL. That's fine. Go do it. Put it on ESPN and put it on Fox. And I will watch old school college football or whatever they want to brand it on TNT and ESPN Plus, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just that's going to be better for everyone in the long run, I think. Sounds painful. Rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just get to it. Coming up next, we'll get you ready for Royals versus Marlins. That series begins tonight. We'll tell you all about it here on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. It's Cole Reagan's day at the K. Royals back home finally after that arduous road trip. Not a good one. They're back home. Cole Reagan's takes the bump tonight against Rotary Munoz of the Miami Marlins. We were looking at his Baseball Savant page earlier. A lot of blue. The stats, the visualization of them range from dark blue to dark red. You want to be closer to dark red. That means really good.
30 strikeouts in 29 and 2/3 innings. That's good.
That's good.
11 home runs allowed in 29 and 2/3 innings. That's bad. That's like what Alec Marsh was doing last year.
Not great.
Just serving up tater after tater.
That's over 3.3 home runs per 9 innings.
Man, they got a gentleman in their bullpen named Declan Cronin. That is the fakest name in Major League Baseball right
I'm
now.
pretty sure he played lacrosse at Johns Hopkins a couple years ago.
They've got two above average hitters, according to OPS Plus, Jazz Chisholm Jr. and Brian Dela Cruz. That's it. Their everyday catcher is a gentleman named Nick Fortes, whose OPS Plus is 18. A reminder that 100 is league average. He's batting 160 with a 423 OPS, and he plays a lot.
That's not great.
Jake Berger was good last year. This year he stinks. Tim Anderson was good 3 years ago. Terrible now.
Yes, he is very bad.
Royals killer Josh Bell is on this team.
Josh Bell. He's hitting decent, right?
Well traveled.
He is their third best hitter with a 92 OPS plus.
Yeah. I knew he's a guy that people might trade for.
He's already been traded 2 years in a row. I've seen his name pop up as well.
Yeah, he was on the Nats, and then the Nats traded him as part of who was it? Who was in that deal?
I don't remember.
remember.
He's switch hitter, hits the ball far, doesn't make a ton of contact. Like,
by the by, he only played 79 games 2 years ago before getting hurt. But in an all-star season in 2022, Tim Anderson batted 300, OPS of 734, above average player.
fun player. Like,
Yeah,
one of the
very
most
fun.
players in baseball.
Yeah.
Very fun. As it turns out, though, the funness kind of runs its course when you A, piss off all your teammates, and then B, after playing the positive family man for years, turns out you very publicly cheated on your wife.
Very publicly.
Yeah, that doesn't help the image.
You still
He
talking
is
about Bell?
Huh?
No, we're talking about
Oh.
Tim Anderson.
no.
Tim
I
Anderson.
do not know about Josh Bell's private life.
Josh Bell was in the trade with Soto.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, he was.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
that gave him
Yeah, because
everybody on their
Eric
team.
Hosmer wouldn't be the make weight.
Yeah.
So they had to throw Josh Bell in instead.
So funny.
Yeah, I mean, you got everybody at the core of the team that's about to come up except for Luke Voigt.
And yeah, this year Tim Anderson's OPS is below 500. That's on base and slugging combined, below 500.
Yeah, this is a stinky team, and this should be a get right opportunity for the Royals. And Cole Reagan's got to be the stopper tonight. Keep the ball in the ballpark. That's been his boogaboo. Otherwise, he's been really, really good. Just got to keep the ball in the ballpark, and I think he'll do that tonight. I think the Royals get off the schneid. Here's hoping for a good debut for C.J. Alexander in the lineup tonight for his big league debut.
Did you see Picolio said they're – that's how you say it, right?
Piccolo.
He said they're going to be aggressive at the trade deadline.
I hope that is
They
true.
should be aggressive now. They should be making phone calls right now.
I was thinking the same thing because they don't want, if this slide continues, you don't want to push yourself out of buying territory. Which is worst case scenario.
Well, they'd
right
sell
now.
John Schreiber right now if they could.
I don't doubt that
He
at
said
all.
yesterday on MLB Network Radio, the thing we have to keep in mind is I like to think that we're just getting into the window. We're going to have a nice handful of seasons. How far do we want to push this thing? Is it something that we have the answer to as a front office?
Push it.
They don't have to push too hard. They just need to add some bullpen pieces. Those are the easiest things to acquire.
Maybe an outfielder.
Minimal pain.
Make
Maybe
like
an
salt.
outfielder.
Make like salt and pepper and push it. Coming up next, we'll wrap up 580 Sports Talk with the final word. Let's wrap up 580 Sports Talk. Final word time. Dan, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the kind welcome back. It's good to be back in the saddle after 2+ weeks of paternity leave. Thanks for the kind words. Do appreciate all of those. It's good to be back. I'm sorry the Royals went in the tank while I was gone. Hopefully me being back is a precipitating event for some winning baseball for the boys in blue starting tonight.
Hopefully Cole Reagans can right the ship, start it all tonight, and then we'll have Seth Lugo tomorrow. That's my final word.
Final word for me. I want to give a shout out to our good buddy, Tim Fitzgerald. We'll talk to Fitz coming up on Wednesday, but he tweeted out earlier today, along with a picture. He got some lunch at Joe's, Kansas City. Said, just leaving an unexpected graduation lunch in Kansas City. I have, for the second time in my journey, graduated from active treatment to observation. No signs of cancer. And while the odds are it will return, you celebrate these victories. I want to give a shout out to Fitz. He has been through a lot. And we're happy to call him a friend. Happy we have him on the show every week. And happy that he is doing really, really well right now. That is such good news to hear. Coming up tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk, of course, we will recap Game 1 between the Royals and the Marlins. Got plenty more NFL and college football to get to, and a lot of recruiting news on the Kansas Jayhawks front with Michael Swain. He'll join us tomorrow for Jayhawk Weekly. That's all coming up tomorrow afternoon from 2 until 6 here on 580 WIBW. Don't forget to check out the podcast version of the show. You can find it at 580WIBW.com. Subscribe to the YouTube, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube's where you can find us. We've got Royals baseball coming up. Pregame at the bottom of next hour. Trenton's got you next for 580 Sports Talk Overtime here on 580 WIBW.